reactions to the ceasefire in the Middle East and the hostage reunions with their families, as well as reflections on a war that's left tens of thousands of Palestinians dead and hundreds of thousands more starved and homeless. What's the path ahead? Is there one? Call us or text.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's NBC Sports Authority Trenni Casey on the rise of parlay in sports betting. Are we all taking one collective step deeper into a gambler's rabbit hole? And that artificial AstroTurf on your kid's soccer field might be making high school sports more dangerous for the athlete in your life. All that and more ahead. 11 o'clock hour, BPR, GBH, and NEPM.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corby Kummer. In the days since Israel declared a ceasefire in Gaza, Hamas has been carrying out a bloody crackdown on rival Palestinian clans. President Trump said Hamas is acting with U.S. approval. NPR's Daniel Estrin has more from Tel Aviv.
Videos show gun battles in the streets of Gaza and Hamas carrying out a field execution of several people accused of collaborating with Israel. The health ministry in the Hamas-run Gaza Strip declined to give NPR statistics on deaths and injuries. Hamas said in a statement that since the ceasefire with Israel, it's carrying out an operation to restore security and stability in Gaza, targeting gangs it accuses of stealing humanitarian aid. It's seen as a Hamas power battle against rival clans and militias to assert itself as the most powerful force in Gaza, even as the U.S. wants Hamas to give up its weapons and control. Asked about the Hamas crackdown, President Trump told reporters they do want to stop the problems, and we gave them approval for a period of time. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
President Trump will posthumously award the Presidential Medal of Freedom today to the late conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Kirk was shot and killed last month at an event on a college campus. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben has more.
Trump announced shortly after Kirk's death that he would award the medal to Kirk. The president has said that Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, will be there for the ceremony. Since Charlie Kirk's death, she has taken over as CEO of Turning Point USA, the campus activist organization he founded. Kirk was beloved among the MAGA movement and often deliberately provocative. His organization created a watch list of professors perceived to be too liberal, leading to harassment of those professors. He also promoted baseless claims of election fraud in the 2020 presidential election and called the Civil Rights Act a mistake. Danielle Kurtzleben, NPR News.
Maine Governor Janet Mills has announced she's running for the U.S. Senate in next year's elections. She'll first face an oyster farmer in the Democratic primary. From Maine Public, Steve Missler reports Mills is aiming for incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins.
Mills was a top recruit for Democratic Senate leaders who view the two-term governor as their best chance to topple Republican Senator Susan Collins next year and help them retake the majority. Mills said she wasn't planning to run, but was drawn into the contest after her high-profile confrontation with President Trump in February. She said Congress and Collins have failed to stand up to the president, but she will.
I've fought for these things all my life, all my career, and I know I can take on this one last fight and get it done.
Collins, who withstood an expensive bid to unseat her in 2020, is expected to seek a sixth term. To run against Collins, Mills will first have to win a potentially bruising Democratic primary. For NPR News, I'm Steve Missler in Augusta, Maine.
On Wall Street, the Dow is down 20 points. It's NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Officials at Harvard University are investigating a data breach by the Russian-speaking cybercrime organization CLOP, which claimed it would release the information in a Saturday post on its website. Crimson reports that at least one Harvard IT person believes the breach was contained to only a small number of individuals in an administrative unit. It also should be noted that the alleged breach was part of a larger attack on Oracle's e-business system, which likely targeted more than 100 companies. At least 72 lawsuits challenging President Donald Trump's policies have been filed in New England federal courts. So says a report from Reuters that shows plaintiffs, including Democratic state attorneys general, advocacy groups, and institutions that have been targeted by the administration. Of these 72 lawsuits, judges have made at least an initial decision on 51 of those cases, and in 46 of those cases, they ruled against Donald Trump. In sports, playoff baseball, it's the Dodgers at the Brewers tonight, and it was 24 years ago today, October 14th, 2001. Tom Brady threw his first career touchdown in Foxborough as the Patriots beat the Chargers 29-26 in overtime. In the forecast, another wet one, light rain, mid-50s today. Don't forget the umbrella, Ella. Cloudy sky overnight, low 48. More clouds than sun tomorrow, high 60, and sunny and mid-50s on Thursday. 54 right now in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the estate of Joan B. Kroc, whose bequest serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio and seeks to help NPR produce programming that meets the highest standards of public service in journalism and cultural expression.
He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. We are not at the Boston Public Library today or tomorrow. We hope for a triumphant return soon. We're not there yet.
I'd say just a return would be good, frankly, but go ahead.
Okay. But we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, can I just add one national headline that didn't make it into the NPR News a minute ago? This is really good news. The Supreme Court, apparently, they didn't call Donald Trump to ask what they were supposed to do, rejected Alex Jones's appeal of that $1.4 billion defamation judgment against him for defaming the Sandy Hook parents.
Yeah.
So good for them. Great for the parents who have suffered unimaginable loss. And doesn't happen often. Supreme Court did the right thing. Pretty great. In any case, a ceasefire has more or less held over the weekend in Gaza, as you know. Hamas released the remaining living hostages back to Israel in exchange for more than 1,000 Palestinians held prisoner in Israel. About 250 of them were convicted of violent crimes over the course of years, but the majority of those released were Gazans held during the course of the war and never charged with anything. Of course, the peace process has only just begun, and neither Israel or Hamas has agreed to phase 2 talks. Questions remain over the future governance and rebuilding of the Gaza Strip, with more than 90% of homes there believed to be destroyed or damaged. The video is just unimaginable. The conditions laid out in the peace plan mean Hamas would have to give up its arms, admit ideological defeat, while accepting that Israel would very likely continue occasional shelling from afar, as it's done with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Just this morning, I think they mentioned this, we're hearing of deaths in Gaza. Israeli forces have killed at least 10 people in the region, saying they opened fire on Palestinians who are approaching Israeli forces. And Hamas has conducted public executions in Gaza this week of those they allege to be collaborators with Israel. And even though Trump is saying it's for a different reason, the national news says Trump is supporting what Hamas is doing. Again, not to kill Israeli collaborators. We actually have sound of Trump saying that. Thank you, Aiden. Here it is.
Hamas rearming, instituting themselves as a Palestinian police force, shooting rivals. What is your message to Hamas?
We're standing because they do want to stop the problems, and they've been open about it, and we gave them approval for a period of time. But you have close to 2 million people going back to buildings that have been demolished, and a lot of bad things can happen. So we want it to be safe.
I have no idea what he's talking about. In any case, the ceasefire and hostage release is obviously worthy of great celebration. But what comes next? Are you hopeful about that? And why yesterday was there so little mention of the killing by Netanyahu of tens of thousands of Palestinians, and the fact that those who are still living, as I mentioned, are returning to so little, if anything, at their homes? The number is 877-301-8970. By the way, the images yesterday, which I'm sure you saw,
the Israeli
of the hostages
families.
being greeted by their families were just incredible.
I mean, the mother screaming, holding her 23-year-old son, the girlfriend and the boyfriend that hadn't seen each other. Did
you see the paralyzed father who couldn't stand
him? Someone lifted him up out of the
so
wheelchair.
that he could hug his son.
Yeah,
oh
he was
God.
paralyzed in a car accident, apparently. Yeah, I mean, it's not a dry eye in the house. It was overwhelming. At the same time, there was not that much much about Palestinians. One interview I did see with a Palestinian prisoner who was released from Israel.
Mm-hmm.
He went back home with a present for his daughter's birthday, and not realizing that his daughter
and his wife
and his other child were dead. They had been killed in an Israeli strike. So, our buddy Margaret Sullivan, she's not really our buddy, but I'm a big fan of hers, and we had her on. She's a media critic. She was on with us last week, and she pointed out that the news media in the United States has been very guilty throughout this whole ordeal of getting enough Palestinians on the air. She did this breakdown over the 24-month period between the horrible terrorist slaughters in Israel and now, and said that in all that time, looking at these Sunday morning shows, there was a single segment on CBS, but the breakdown basically was 1 Palestinian guest, 24 Israeli guests, 5 by Benjamin Netanyahu, and 84 by U.S. officials. She was basically saying we have been remiss in getting the perspective from Palestinians.
And by the way, even though obviously Israel was stopping a lot of reporters who were not based there from getting into Gaza, obviously there were a lot of other Palestinians with whom they could speak. And again, there was very little mention of this yesterday. There was a lot of mention, in fairness to the press, is while there was a lot of credit given to Donald Trump, as I think he deserves, including by people like Bill Clinton, a Democrat, needless to say. He was very short on details. The press did do that. There is no discussion about what the governance is going to be, what's going to happen in the West Bank, what's going to happen to Hamas, which obviously is not crazy about disarming. So 2 important steps, a ceasefire. We've had ceasefires before, but the hostage release yesterday is obviously a huge deal.
Well, what the diplomats, or most of them, are saying is that it was Trump's attack on Iran that really got things started, because it decapitated them to a degree that they were not going to be able to help Hamas that much more. And then the Israelis' bombing of Qatar, or Qatar, depending on how you say it, and that's where the people that were negotiating the peace agreement were killed. So Trump put enormous pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu, for which he deserves enormous credit. He's very good at putting enormous pressure on people, and he put pressure on Netanyahu, and that apparently is what brought this whole to a head.
And we should say on the Iran thing, we criticized Trump when he said that he had obliterated their nuclear capacity before we had any idea if he did, but was clear whether he did or not. He so put them out of business that their ability to support Hamas and other friendly organizations disappeared, which most experts believe, even those who are not Trump friendly, as you say, led to Hamas deciding to sign on to this deal. And he did put a lot of pressure on Netanyahu, which a prior president, Joe Biden, did not do when it came to arms. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think if he can continue putting that pressure on Netanyahu, that's going to be one of the singular points here, because a lot needs to happen, as many people have pointed out. They have to set up this international force to govern Gaza. They have to get this, raise all the money to rebuild Gaza. They've got to do.
Well, he said he wants it from the countries with whom he met, whose leaders he met with yesterday in Egypt. Do you think Trump has the attention span to stay with us?
I hope so.
I hope so, too. I hope so, too.
It's not a good sign that Jared Kushner, who was very involved in this, his son-in-law, said he was going back to Florida. It was a private equity firm. And Witkoff,
I didn't hear that.
And Witkoff, the other big negotiator, he's also trying to negotiate an end to Ukraine and Russia. So that's a lot.
Trump's meeting with Zelensky this Friday, another positive development, potentially. Yeah. But we want to know what your reaction was to yesterday, the ceasefire, the release of the hostages, both alive, not all of those who have died. Their bodies were not all released, but apparently that's in the process. What do you think about the future prospects of this 20-point plan, including governance and disarming Hamas? And what do you think about the, at least from our perspective and Margaret Sullivan's, the paucity of coverage of what has happened to innocent Palestinians over the last 2 years in Gaza?
One of our texters just points out that they're a big watcher of the PBS NewsHour from 6 to 7, and they think Palestinians got more coverage there, and that's a good point.
I think that's true, actually.
The PBS NewsHour is a great from 6 to 7 show. It's much less hysterical than a lot of other news coverage, and they did do a good job. Because, of course, the Palestinians not only are going back to decimation, but are they going to be free? what are their lives going to be like?
Well, as you know, neither Trump nor Netanyahu supports the two-state solution. We'll see what happens. 877-301-8970 is the number. Let's start with, I believe, Basil. If I pronounce it wrong, please correct me, in Manchester, Connecticut. Hey, Basil.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hi.
Long-time listener.
Thank you.
I love you guys.
Thank you.
We agree on pretty much about 99% of the topics that you guys host.
However,
one thing I don't align on is the depiction of the Palestinians that are being released as prisoners. The majority of them didn't commit any crimes, weren't prosecuted for any crimes.
You're right.
Weren't told of any crimes they committed.
Right.
So I think we need to classify that and be correct with how we.
Well, can I say, Basil, if I may, I made clear of more than 1,000 released, I mentioned 250 roughly had committed serious crimes, and the rest had not only not committed crimes, but were charged with nothing. So I think, in all fairness, we did make that clear. But go right ahead.
You did make that depiction clear, but your first statement was that they were prisoners. Some of them were prisoners, yes.
I did say that. You're right. You're right.
Weren't committed any crimes.
Yep. Well, they were prisoners. They were. I don't mean to argue, but they were prisoners. They were detained.
They were in prison.
But you're right. When you're detained with no charges, there's some inequity there. You were 100% right.
Yes. So, but thank you guys. This is an important show, and I appreciate you guys.
You're a good guy. Thank you, Basil. Call us again, please.
Well, you had read these stories over the years that there'd be teenagers throwing rocks at Israeli soldiers, and they would be taken and put into prison and that sort of thing, which is really, really tough. Anyway, 877-301-8970 is the number. There was an unbelievable television coverage to watch the unification of these longtime hostages with their families, but we have many steps to go. So what do you think matters going forward? What do you think about what happened over the weekend? Millie in Newburyport, thank you for calling.
Hi, Millie.
Hi. I just wanted to be honest and just say, Jim, it's unbelievable that your main takeaway from the release of the hostages, that there wasn't enough talk about Palestinians.
Well, can I tell you, Millie, if I may, it was not only not my main takeaway, I said only 3 times in the introduction how terrific the hostage release and the ceasefire was. So that's your interpretation of what I said, but it was not what I said. But go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah, it was pulling a similarity to yesterday's comment on CNN. I don't know if you heard.
Which was?
Which was Christine Amanpour spoke about that the average Gazan was actually treated worse.
I heard that.
Than the hostages.
Yeah.
It just rang a little too familiar and a little too, similar to that. So it was hard, especially since I believe you're Jewish. It'd be nice, to hear that
Millie, if I may, I hear everything you're saying. I was offended deeply by Christiane Amanpour's comment, even though I'm a fan of hers. Let me read to you what I said and tell me how it's even similar to that. And there was way too little mention of yesterday of Netanyahu's killing of tens of thousands of Palestinians and the fact that they'll be returning to very little. What was anything other than a factual retelling of what happened yesterday? What were you offended by?
I mean, I just, it's awful what's going on in Gaza and Palestine, but I think the moral equivalence that keeps being pulled is just, it doesn't match up. And
well, I couldn't disagree with you more. Netanyahu's murder of tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians, I think, is an absolute moral equivalency. And we just disagree. And I respect your opinion, Millie, but I totally disagree with it. Thank you for your call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
I don't think it's moral. Palestinians have almost not been treated as real human beings. Children have been starving there for weeks. Someone could have stopped that, and nobody did.
Yeah, this feels like October 8th when we were on the air, and October 9th and October 10th of 2 years ago. I hope Millie is not suggesting, I don't know if she is, but anybody else who's listening is suggesting that there was anything but unimaginable horror on October 7th with 1,000 plus people slaughtered. But you can feel that way, as Marjorie and I do, and I hope you all do, and be completely appalled by the savagery of Netanyahu in Gaza, and then denying that people were starving. It's preposterous. So, in any case, 877-301-8970 is our number. Where are we going?
We are. I don't know where we're going. Oh, the first. I can't read it from here.
I don't know where they want us to go. You got to let us know, please, somebody quickly, where you would like us to go next, and we will do that.
Meanwhile, I can read some text while we're waiting to find out where to go. As for major networks on Gaza and the Middle East in general, Al Jazeera English for the win, Ross and Brighton. Yeah, Al Jazeera comes out of the Middle East, and they do a lot of great reporting. I don't watch them as much as I should. Do you watch Al Jazeera?
No, I read a decent amount. I mean, you do too, by the way. It's often in our piles.
Yeah.
Preparation for them. But I want to get back to this thing, and I respect Millie and what she had to say. Obviously, I don't agree with her. But I thought we'd gotten past, but maybe we haven't, particularly today, with the notion that fair-minded people can think two things at the same time.
Well, it's holding two things at once.
Yeah, but
we talked about
why
this
is that
right
so
at the
difficult?
beginning.
I know.
Well, I think perhaps because there have been so much talk about anti-Semitism, perhaps because the president talked about, when he was giving a speech yesterday about his previous predecessors, didn't like Israelis. I think he used the word hate.
Who said that?
Trump.
Oh, Trump.
Talking about his Democratic predecessors had a hatred toward Israel. I think this is maybe wrapped up in the anti-Semitism situation. I'm not sure, but obviously it's beyond horrible what happened October 7th. It's beyond horrible what's happened to Gazans. And as one of them said, that was interviewed yesterday or written about yesterday, they talked about going home to a place where there are no homes because the place is 90% decimated. They have no idea if anybody's going to fix it up. They have no idea how long Hamas is going to be on the street executing so-called collaborators. It's and 67,000 people. I think if that happened in the United States, it'd be something like 33 million Americans killed.
I mean, based on the population in Gaza.
So it's
huge.
It's huge. It's huge on both sides. But I think we have not. I don't think delved enough into Palestine.
Ellie in Webster, you're next. Thank you much for your call. Appreciate it. Ellie.
Hello?
Got to turn your radio down. Hi.
Hi. I stepped away from it. I want to comment on two things. First, I'm so elated that they are free, those poor people. But my second comment is that this is the same deal that Biden and Harris brokered several months before they left office. And Netanyahu and Trump conspired to not do it so that they could to keep these people hostages so that they could. I mean, this is just insane. This is the first step in Trump's wanting to take over Gaza and relocate the Palestinians.
Well, Ellie, can I say your first half I agree with. From what I read, and this is surely not my area of expertise, the 20-point Trump plan is very similar to the Biden plan. But as we said earlier in the show, the thing that made a huge difference, according to experts who both Margie and I respect and who generally are not Trump fans, is the bombing of Iran was a huge part of this. And Trump's reaction to Netanyahu's dropping a bomb in Qatar was a huge part of it. So, again, the plan itself may have been very similar, but other actions taken by Trump here, I think he deserves praise. And I have to say, well, I am a big fan of Joe Biden domestically. I think he was not nearly tough enough with Netanyahu publicly, at least. They say he was tough privately in terms of weaponry. So we have a disagreement there. Ellie, thank you for your call, though. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970 is the number. And I assume everybody knows who follows this, which I assume is all of you. There have been ceasefires before. There was a ceasefires recently. Was it January? Yeah. During the transition period. The issue is, the additional huge plus is the release of the hostages, obviously. And the question is, will this lead to more? And I see notes. I mean, it requires an acceptance of a future that neither Hamas nor Israel agrees upon. Peaceful coexistence. So where's the hope? I guess.
I don't know. I don't know. And obviously, there are many Israeli citizens who are afraid, rightfully so, after what happened October 7th, of having this country, Gaza, so close to them, and they're worried about who's going to protect them going forward.
Well, the first step, it would seem to me, the Israeli people are not enamored. They may have been for a day. I don't know what the numbers were yesterday. Netanyahu's got to go. Did you hear that Trump yesterday, I can't remember what stage of the day, asked that a leader who I guess has this power, I'm not sure who, maybe it's the president there, would pardon Netanyahu? Because I assume people know the corruption charges are still pending. And one of the reasons people think he prolonged the war as long as he did was to avoid having to deal with that. But Trump thinks he, too, should get a pardon. I'm sure if Trump had the power to pardon him, he'd pardon him. Let's go to Fran in Worcester. Hi, Fran. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Good job so far.
Thanks.
It's wonderful to see those people released. It's fabulous. Hard to feel confident in the long run.
I agree with that.
It's really hard to feel confident in the long run because I believe his motivation is ill. I think he's doing it for his own glory and for Trump enterprises in the future. How long before we see Gaza being developed with golf resorts?
Well, maybe, but yesterday was a pretty important, I mean, I question his motives on anything, but yesterday was an important day, Fran.
Oh, yeah.
And he made it happen.
I don't disagree with that at all. I'm worried about what's next. When Ivanka and Jared come slithering into the
Marjorie's favorite verb.
You know, they're a business interest.
Yeah, well, they did say
They
did say that in this peace plan that no Palestinian is going to be moved out of Gaza if they don't want to be moved out of Gaza. I think that was one of the fears initially, that the place would be reduced to rubble, and then
It
Trump
has been reduced to rubble.
Well, it has been reduced. That's true. That the Riviera of the Middle East kind of idea that that's I don't think going to be possible if no one is going to be moved from Gaza. And I would imagine, I don't know how many Gazans want to move, but I would suspect it's not that many. We're going to keep talking about this. Take your calls and texts after this quick break on the fragile ceasefire holding in Gaza and the likelihood of lasting peace there. What do you think? 877-301-8970. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR and GBH and NEPM is streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, Bobby Brown. The makeup maven and entrepreneur joins us to talk about her new book, Still Bobby. A candid, colorful reflection on beauty, aging, reinvention, and staying true to yourself. From the early days of her iconic brand to her latest ventures, she's redefining what it means to be authentic in a filtered, airbrushed, Botoxed world. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And GM Roth Design Remodeling. Dreams delivered. With custom kitchens, bathrooms, and additions. Serving New England for over 39 years. Learn more at gmroth.com. And the Bach Center, presenting Herbie Hancock, the groundbreaking jazz musician and Grammy Award-winning icon. Herbie Hancock at the Bach Center Wang Theater, Wednesday, October 29th. Tickets at bachcenter.org.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. We're not at the library, but we're still streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Hope to be back there Friday. We'll let you know in the next day or two if that's possible. We're talking about yesterday, obviously, hostage release, and we should make clear some of the remains of the 28 killed hostages who died. I don't know if all of them were killed. have not yet been returned. I don't know what the status of that is, but we do know there was a ceasefire, hostage return, release of 1,000-plus Palestinians. As we said, 250 roughly had committed violent crimes. The others had been held without charges. And the question is, what did you think of yesterday? And arguably, more importantly, what's next in terms of Hamas disarming, further peace, governance of Gaza, West Bank, etc. 877-301-8970.
You know, a texter mentioned this, saying, of course, two things can be horrible at the same time, which is what happened to the Israelis and what happened to the Gazans. But second, the texter says, and maybe you've already noted this, which we haven't, it's interesting to me that the recent events have occurred within weeks of many countries, many of them in Europe, recognizing they're favoring a Palestinian state. You wonder if that had anything to do with anything.
I don't know. I don't know. 877-301-8970 is our number.
It's Donit, I believe, in Lexington. Thank you for calling.
Hey there, Donit.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I've called before. I have a lot to say. I'll try to keep it brief.
Please.
I just want to say, as an Israeli American living in the area, Israelis are absolutely elated. Many of us were up at 4 or 5 in the morning on Sunday night following along to see the release of the hostages. This is not only something that was important for 20 families, it's something that was critical for an entire country, which is still in trauma from October 8th. And Israelis really feel, and I know you've had hostage family members on, which I appreciate, and the way the Israelis feel is that no one should be left behind. And therefore, I just wanted to remind everybody that there are still 24 hostages, dead hostages, bodies of hostages that are still being held, which means that Hamas at this point has broken the deal. And I really do not want to return to any kind of fighting. I don't want the Israeli troops to go back in, but I do, it's important to note that Hamas still needs to return all the Israeli hostages.
How do you, obviously, I'm guessing you have relatives or close friends who are still living in Israel. Is that a fair statement, Donit?
Yes.
How are they feeling about Netanyahu? I don't mean on the day. How are they feeling about Netanyahu's continuation in office in general?
They can't stand Netanyahu. Yeah. Everybody I know wants him out. They think that he was, he's at fault for what happened on October 7th. They haven't been supporting him for over a decade. And everyone's hoping that he'll be replaced in the next election. But that's hard to do. Not supporting, but you know what? They did support getting the hostages out.
Of course.
And I also wanted to make a little correction to something that was said, which is 250 Palestinians were returned. These were people with life sentences and blood on their hands. They murdered thousands of Israelis.
I know.
Over the decades. And 1,700, whether they were murderers or not, should not have been in prisons. However, it's the Palestinians that set the tone. Instead of requesting one Palestinian life for every Israeli life, they expect several Palestinians.
Well, that's
for
been the
every
history.
Israeli. So
you remember, it wasn't too long ago
right?
for the release of one soldier. How many Palestinians were released in that exchange?
1,000.
1,000? Yeah. Dunny, we hope
1,000 for Gilad Shalit.
Right.
Yes.
We really appreciate your call and your thoughts. We should say, when Donit mentioned we've had hostage families on before, Yarden Raman-Gat, who was profiled on 60 Minutes, was the woman, I think she was in captivity for 57 days.
Yeah, she's the one that was running away from the festival with her baby in her arms, and she couldn't run fast enough, so she handed her kid to her husband, and the husband and the child hid for many hours in a ditch, and she was captured, and they hid. I think the child was 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah, we had her husband on, who took the baby. We had her cousin on.
Yeah.
Her Yarden's sister was killed.
Yep.
Her mother, I believe, was also killed. And I don't know if you remember, when her husband was on last with her cousin, she was sitting in the audience at the library, and we didn't know that until afterwards. And we got to say hello afterwards, which actually was pretty meaningful for both of us.
And you know what you've also learned? Some of the situations that these hostages were in, like the last few that were killed in that, when 5 or 6 people were shot at close range, in these teeny tiny tunnels where they were just scrunched in.
See the guy who was released yesterday digging his grave in that video? I mean, obviously he never...
Yes.
I hope I pronounced this right. Kaharsha in Lowell. Did I get that right, I hope?
Yeah, that's correct.
Hi, Kaharsha. Welcome to the show. Thanks for calling.
Sorry. The name is pronounced Praharsha. I'm a student at UMass. And what I wanted to call about was the aspect of how Trump is taking credit for a lot of the peace deals that he brokered. Like, as you mentioned, it was very similar to Biden's plan in 20 points term. But moving beyond that, not just the credit that he's taking for something that was obviously had foundations built before, nobody has mentioned any idea of how the political foundation of Palestine will be fixed. If there are supporters of Hamas still actively operating post this plan, nothing's going to change. We had the first intifada, the second intifada, and now we're all the way here. The cycle of hate doesn't change. The feeling of oppression doesn't change. And so you just left the building blocks for the same plan and the same attacks or the same ways of, oppression and vice versa, retaliation to occur. What's the plan for that?
Well, I think we have said it. That is the only and most important question. What's the plan going forward? Yes to a ceasefire. Yes, release of the hostages. Release of 1,000+ Palestinians. But what's next? And I think none of those questions have been answered. And I would say the indication is that there's not a hell of a lot of hope, but hopefully they'll build on yesterday. Kaharsha, thank you for your call. We're out of time.
And some of our texters are also saying that a lot of these states that surround Israel have wanted to annihilate Israel. They don't want it to exist. So obviously that has to come into the peace plan somewhere as well.
Well, a decent percentage were not crazy about Hamas either. And a lot of them were there yesterday. So fingers crossed.
Okay, coming up after this quick break, Trenni Casey, anchor reporter for NBC Sports Boston, is going to join us with the latest on Bill Belichick. We can't get enough of Bill Belichick. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to PPR and GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Marco Werman. The World's Newsroom brings you the big picture stories and some other stuff.
The whole of Niagara Falls is ripping over my right shoulder. As an ice climber, it's the largest, wildest thing I could think of climbing, and it's never been climbed. So I'm really happy to have had the opportunity to go and stick an ice tool into it.
Join us and hear the world.
This afternoon at 3 on GBH 89.7. Support for GBH comes from you.
And Safety Insurance, offering auto insurance policies designed to help for when the worst happens. You can ask an independent agent about safety insurance. Safety Insurance will help you manage life's storms. And MIT Federal Credit Union, providing personal loan options to help consolidate debt, fund home improvements, and more. Applications at mitfcu.org. Federally insured by NCUA.
And tomorrow we are in Brighton, but we are streaming at YouTube.
Or streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Joined now on Zoom by Trenni Casey. Trenni's an anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston and a BPR contributor. Hey, Trenni.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Hey, Trenni, great to talk to you. So let's start with this great piece in The Atlantic by Sally.
Wow,
Jenkins.
Yes.
Talking about the MAGAification of sports continues, how Donald Trump, I love this phrase, steals machismo, she says, by placing himself next to athletes who are attending all these mixed martial arts and ultimate fighter contests and blah, blah, blah. So tell us what she had to say here.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the crux of the article, guys, is something we saw in the Ryder Cup. And I'm not sure if we talked about this. I don't remember if we were on the air.
I think we did.
But just the brutish nature of, what is happening at otherwise well-behaved sporting events. It's like Sally Jenkins is basically saying that Donald Trump is using the UFC, which is the Ultimate Fighting Championship, it is a cage match. If those of you who don't know what UFC Ultimate Fighting is, one, it's extraordinarily popular. It's one of the most popular sports in the United States. It has television deals with, streaming services like Netflix. It also airs on ESPN. They have special commentators and analysts, but it's basically beating someone to a pulp in a cage. It's like Muay Thai meets boxing meets karate meets all of these sort of like different martial arts. But at the base of it, it's brutal. There's a lot of brutality to it. And Sally Jenkins is arguing that this obsession with UFC and brutality is sort of emblematic of the Trump administration, right? That they want us to sort of kind of beat each other down to the point where we can't come together.
She said in the story that is part of the festivities celebrating America's 250th anniversary. He's going to host one of these Ultimate Fighting Championships on White House grounds.
Yeah, I love that she draws the parallel that George W. Bush had like a horseshoes tournament on the White House lawn, and he's going to have a cage match. Because I say this all the time. Have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
No.
Okay, so it's a movie that came out, I think, in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And it's with Luke Wilson and some actress I don't know. And they are frozen in time. They're frozen by the U.S. Army, like cryogenically frozen. And they're supposed to like be thawed out in a year to see what happens to the human body. But they forget to unthaw them. And then they come back, the 20, 30 years later. And the United States is run by a reality superstar. Like everyone is drinking like crazy energy drinks and watching things like people beat each other to death on television. And it's about basically the stupefaction of the United States. And every time something happens with this administration, I'm like, we are living in idiocracy. It was not satire. It was a crystal ball to the future.
Yeah, it was a documentary, our staff is saying, right?
No, it's not a documentary. It is a fictional comedy about basic, like things, the U.S. becoming dumber and falling into all these ridiculous things. Just it's actually depressing to watch, I think, because you just feel like you're living in it.
We can't get any more depressed than we are.
But that to me is what UFC is.
By the way, Sally Jenkins wrote this for the Atlantic. Did you tell me she was at the Globe at the beginning of her career?
No, she.
I didn't know. Washington Post.
I was Washington Post.
Yeah,
right?
she went from the Globe to the Washington Post, and now she's the Atlantic probably. And he also talks about how Trump. She talks about how. I meant it was Trump. Scolding the NFL, according to the story, talking about sissy football is bad for America because they want to change rules. And I thought,
well, they don't want to. They have changed the kickoff rule, Marjorie. I don't know how much NFL you've watched, but when the NFL now has their opening kickoff or a kickoff after a touchdown, usually guys are running at the kicker and at the punt returner, the kickoff returner immediately. Now there's a pause to let the guy catch it, fair catch it, let it drop before everybody can move forward. And it's to try and prevent concussions. It's listen, you're never going to completely take concussions and like catastrophic injuries out of football. It's still a violent sport, but the league has tried to take some steps to make it less dangerous. And Trump doesn't like it because he says it's the wussification of America.
Well, that's what I'm pointing out, the irony of this guy talking about the NFL as being sissies. I mean, does anyone in the world think that's so?
Yeah, his supporters think whatever he thinks, they think too.
I know.
Now, can we go back to move on to one of my favorite issues, which is how states with legislatures like ours that are too scared to say to the people, we actually need to raise taxes fairly to fund things you're dependent upon, particularly when the federal government is taking a walk, have relied upon gambling. And we are expanding gambling here as fast as we possibly can. I've said a million times, for example, no one, not even close, is the second most lottery playing state compared to us. We're number one. There's this great piece in the Washington Post about how the biggest play right now are parlays. You can explain what they are in a minute, but I will explain. The beauty of them is the odds of the better losing are even greater than in normal kinds of betting, and Massachusetts does allow parlays. What are they there, Trenni?
So a parlay is okay. We'll use my Milwaukee Brewers are playing the Dodgers tonight.
Oh, congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, Jim. I would.
Well, they're in the regional thing, but
yeah,
I mean,
they are.
They're only down 1-0. Yeah.
They lost last night. It was a great game. Anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about parlays, and I'm going to use the Brewers-Dodgers game tonight as an example. So let's say you DraftKings, a local company, offers a parlay tonight. Say, and I don't know if these are the numbers. I'm completely making these up, right? Brewers favored at -110. Kike Hernandez to hit a home run at +130, Christian Yelich to hit a home run, and Andrew Vaughn to hit a home run, and they have all these things combined. So let's say at the end you're at your odds are at, say +320. So if you put down $100, you win $320. People do this because there is a chance to win more money, right? So if you put $10 down on something rather than winning like $3, you might win $30, $40, $100. And they're kind of fun because you can keep an eye on like a whole bunch of different things. It keeps you really interested in a bunch of maybe football games on a Sunday or college games on a Saturday. The problem is you have to hit. I mean, I've played parlays before, but you guys know me. My like max bet is always like $10. You know, you do it to see, can you take the smallest amount of money and make the most amount of money? But I think, as this Washington Post article points out, if 100 people put $100 on a parlay, that's $10,000, I think, and only like 3 people will hit the parlay. So almost everybody loses. Like your chance of hitting a parlay is so low.
It's called a sucker's bet.
It is a sucker's bet. Like the guys at work who have been gambling long before it was legal, and have always been in it, are always like, they would never bet a parlay because they know it's stupid. They know it's like an easy way to lose money. But if you're an inexperienced gambler, or you're trying to hit big for not a lot, it's really easy to get enticed. And they're always, on the gambling apps, they're always pushing parlays. So if I open up my DraftKings app, you'll see one of the first things across the top will be like 7 different parlays that you can bet on that day. I, again, don't do them very often. I don't bet very often. It's just, I don't like to just give money away. Just not me. But it is for people who like are addicted or want to play, or maybe shouldn't be playing. Like, it's a really easy way to lose a lot of money fast with the hope of winning a lot of money fast. And what I thought, Jim, was interesting about the article is how even when you lose, you are sort of tricked into think you're close to winning. So like, I've had a parlay like this before, where I had like four bets and I hit 3 of them, and I did another one. Then I was so close, and that's how they trick you. They get you into thinking like you're so close because you hit 3 of them. How hard can it be to hit one more? But it's extremely difficult, and it certainly favors the house.
Now, let me just say briefly, because you said Washington Post in a particular way, only 3 people listening are going to understand this, but Marjorie will. There's a brilliant woman. Is it Elizabeth Vasquez? Is that her name?
Oh,
who
yes.
Who does a bit every day on TikTok.
She's a riot.
She does Carolyn Levitt, and Carolyn Levitt, who is obviously always trashing the press to make Trump happy, always says Caitlin, talking about Caitlin Collins, and the Washington Post. She always does it at the end.
Yeah, just say.
Do you know she was our intern?
No.
Elizabeth Vasquez?
No, Carolyn Levitt.
No,
she was. Yes, I don't remember. She was definitely an intern when I worked at. It must have been like.
She lives in New Hampshire, right?
Yes, and so she was like a sports intern with us. I don't remember her. But like, we talk about it all the time, that it's crazy that, she was one of our sports interns.
We have to say the one thing about Vasquez, because Carolyn Levitt often wears a cross around her neck, as do
always. They always do.
While demonizing poor people, they got the big cross there. But anyway, she wears a cross, Vasquez, that starts like at her belly button and goes up to her neck. And one day it's made out of, COVID masks, and one day it's made out of shoes, and one day it's made out of bombs. I mean, the cross thing is just a riot.
Okay, so can we move to a topic that I feel really bad because we try to serve the audience. We haven't talked about this except every single week for the last year. Here's Bill Belichick yesterday denying reports that he's been seeking, let's call it an exit strategy from his coaching job at North Carolina.
Some of the reports out last week about my looking for a buyout and trying to leave here and all that is categorically false. There's zero truth to any of that. Glad I'm here. We're working towards our goals and the process.
And the goal, we should say in fairness to him, is to collect all $50 million that UNC is paying him. So they sadly did not play this weekend, which sadly means they did not lose. I don't wish the players ill will. I do wish him ill will. Do you buy these? I mean, both, and the university put out a statement too, saying we love the guy, he's going to be here. Do you buying this or no?
No, I mean, I feel like pro teams do this all the time, right? Like they get up in front of an entire room full of people and say, so-and-so manager, so-and-so coach has our full support, and like 2 weeks later they fire them, right? Like he might have the full support of the University of North Carolina on Monday, October, what was yesterday's date? The 13th, Monday, October 13th, 2025. And if they go out to Cal this weekend and they get smoked again and they get smoked again a week later, he may no longer have the full support of the University of North Carolina. Like,
but don't they have to pay him like $30 million or something?
Well, okay, so if Bill Belichick, if UNC wants to fire Bill Belichick, they have to pay out a portion of his contract. So the contract is worth $50 million, but they wouldn't have to pay him 50. Everything I've read says they would owe him about $20 million, which is still a ton of money, right? Especially for a public institution. What they can do, though, Jim, is they have had some, and this is what I think the real holdup is. They have had some recruiting violations. They have one assistant coach who's already been put on administrative leave and is not allowed to be around the team anymore. My guess is that right now they don't have enough evidence and they don't have enough cause to fire him for cause and to get out of paying him the whole entire amount. If I had to, educated guess, not even an educated, just a guess, they're just trying to figure out a way of, has he done enough bad things and violated the contract that they can get away with not having to pay him his whole buyout? I
mean, essentially threatened him with firing. In return, he says, I'll take $10 million and I'll leave. Well, we shall see. And they're not, again, they didn't play this weekend, but they are playing, I think, Friday night. So we'll be watching that
I think they're Friday night against Cal, I think, but I might be wrong about that.
I think you're right.
So let's talk about artificial turf. We've been hearing a lot over the years about how, the ground up tires are not good with chemicals and there's more injuries and stuff. I didn't know Boston and Westport, Connecticut have effectively banned them, according to this a piece from NBC News, from the recycled tires due to concerns about chemicals. What's the deal for
chemicals
kids?
And injuries, right?
Well, this says chemicals, but there's injuries too involved. So, what's the deal especially for kids playing soccer, kids playing other games on artificial turf?
I mean, all you need to know is Lionel Messi won't play. When he travels, he won't play on turf. Wow. I think he has occasionally, but of course he won't play on turf because turf is, there's a reason that we have seen an uptick in knee and Achilles injuries, particularly in soccer and football on these artificial turfs. Like they're not great. Like, natural grass is still the best way to go. Natural grass is more absorbent. It's better for the environment. It is like softer. It's like, I don't understand why it's cheaper. That's why all of these places go to artificial turf, because when you have artificial turf, you pay the initial cost to lay it down and then maybe some like minor maintenance, but it's not that hard to maintain, right? Like, but if you have natural grass, you have to employ a pretty large grounds crew. Like, think about the grounds crew that works at Fenway Park.
Yeah.
Like when they pull the tarp out or they're getting the field ready, think of how many guys are out there and like the intricacy in which you need to keep the grass a certain thickness, a certain height, like all these different things. Lambeau Field is a natural grass surface. It's one of the few natural grass surfaces in all of the NFL, but it costs a lot of money. They have to have heaters underneath, like coils, so that it literally doesn't become the frozen tundra, because that's bad too, right? But to me, it's I can't believe how, I mean, I understand it from a monetary standpoint, but like for young athletes and even older athletes, like it's bad. It's not a good playing surface. It's just less expensive. And as we know, everything is about money.
You know,
and
I don't know if you said
for the young woman who was featured in this piece. You know, here's a young kid who was hoping to play soccer in college, a local from Uxbridge, and she blows out her knee.
Yeah.
Did you say this or not? Are there any of the pro football the teams play on artificial turf?
Oh my God, almost all.
So what is? I know it's
Packers,
the weakest.
The Packers are one of the few teams,
That
which
is
is
natural.
wild because think of where they play.
Exactly
they play
right.
in the,
Frozen
in
tundra.
Green Bay.
So,
they're
but wait
one
a
of the
second.
few.
So
Foxborough is artificial turf.
it is. Well, so I assume that's a tribute to the historical weakness, comparatively speaking, of the football union. I mean, it seems to me, how is that not a demand of the NFL Players Association that we don't play on
natural grass?
Yeah, I mean, really.
I mean, really, the NFLPA, Jim, is pretty weak, and it's weak because of the vast disparity in how players are paid, right? So you have 53 guys on a roster, and your quarterback, a la Patrick Mahomes, might be making $500 million over the course of 10 years, but your number 53 guy on the roster, who is, say, a rookie, and listen, they're not starving, they're making probably $700,000, $800,000, $900,000, even $1 million a year, but that pales in comparison once you've done your agent fees, your taxes, all this other stuff, training, maintenance, union dues.
Still no excuse.
And so when you lock out, most of your roster can't afford to be locked out.
Yeah. So we only have a couple of minutes left. I have to say, when I read this story, first person I thought
Charlie
of,
Baker.
No. Well, we're not going to get to that one
today.
We're
not?
First person I thought of when I read a story about Everesting, a word I never heard before.
Oh, okay.
Is I said, Trenni Casey is going to do this. And tell people what it is. Look at the smile on her face. And you are going to do it, aren't you? What is it?
Well, I promised my sister. My sister really wants to do this. It's called Everesting, and it's called 29029, which is the height of Everest. So obviously climbing Mount Everest is something that most people can't do. It's cost prohibitive. It's like $100,000 minimum. You need months to block out to make sure you have perfect weather. And also, I don't know, it just freaks me out. I don't want to do it. But there is a company that started something called Everesting. So they pick, I think every summer, it's like 6 to 8 different mountains in North America. One of them is in Vermont. I think it's like Stratton or something in Vermont is one of the mountains that you can do. And you climb it the equivalent of 29,029. Is that right?
Great. So if it was like 3,000 feet, you'd climb it like 10 times is the bottom line.
Yes.
Go up, come down, up and down.
And then, so you don't walk down because down's really hard on your legs. So you gondola down and then you hike back up. And it's not cheap. It's like $7,000 to do it. You have 36 hours to finish. They have a really nice hotel there that you can go sleep in. They have, crews there with fuel and electrolytes and all these things. But it's hard. Like it takes, some people finish. They say 70% of people finish, but 30% of people never get to that, finish all 29,000 feet. But people do it it was kind of interesting, all the people who do it for different reasons. Like someone did it because they had just gotten a divorce. Another guy did it after losing his grandson in a tragic drowning, and he was climbing. Other people just do it because they want to push. I think everybody wants to push themselves to, no pun intended, new heights. Which is why marathoning, ultra marathoning, Ironman, triathlons, all these things as the adventure races have become so popular, because I think everyone is really curious, how far can you push yourself?
Well, let me just say, it's not probably as exciting as climbing Everest. One plus is you don't die. I think that is
right.
Probably.
Although I think somebody did,
they did?
I once did doing one of these. Well, but it was more because they had you have to be, the thing with these endurance events, and this is this is with all endurance events, you have to be really careful. You have to make sure you're eating the right way, you're drinking the right way, you're drinking enough extra electrolytes, but not too many. There's a real balance of what your body can handle when you push it to its limits.
I'll take a pass then. Okay, Trenni, tell us when you do it. We'll celebrate it with you.
Okay.
Be well.
You know it.
See you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay, we've been speaking with Trenni Casey, anchor reporter for NBC Sports Boston. Thank you very much, Trenni Casey. We say goodbye to you, those of you listening on NEPM. Thank you for tuning in. But please make sure to tune into the fabulous 413 starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon. The show continues here in Boston after the new news with food policy analyst Corby Kummer. We're going to talk about a closing of one of our favorite local businesses, a wine store in the south end of Boston, and a lot of other food news. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browder and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Burton's Grill and Bar, featuring a scratch kitchen where each dish is customizable for those with food allergies or restrictions. A gluten-free menu is also available. Details on their allergy protocols at burtonsgrill.com. And Babson College, where you can advance your career with an MBA or specialized master's at the school ranked #2 best college in the United States by the Wall Street Journal 2025. babson.edu/grad programs.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browder, head on hour 2 of BPR, not at the BPL. We'll start with a check-in on food policy. With Halloween around the corner, big candy conglomerates are getting experimental with their flavors. Think berry-flavored peanut butter, pumpkin spice creams, and it's all wrapped up in a global cocoa shortage. Meanwhile, some Americans are dealing with their own candy shortages as they consume on the whole supply twice of candy before trick-or-treaters can even show up. We'll discuss all of that with Corby Kummer.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we're talking with Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung about Boston Public Market, which started 10 years ago as a way for local farmers and food makers to get their products on plates. But a decade on, the market has yet to break even. We'll get Shirley's thoughts on that and other Boston business news, all that, plus our beloved Two More Things segment next on the second hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Israel says it opened fire during an incident in northern Gaza, even as a ceasefire deal remains in place between Israel and Hamas. Here's NPR's Ruth Sherlock.
The Israeli military said its troops opened fire on, quote, several suspects. It said these individuals were crossing the yellow line that marks the boundary Israeli troops have pulled back to in the first phase of the US-brokered peace plan for Gaza. The military asked Gaza residents not to approach troops in this area and said those individuals were violating the ceasefire agreement. Hamas in a statement said it was Israel who violated the truce and that a number of Gaza residents were killed as a result. Gaza's local health authority said 6 Palestinians have been killed in 2 separate events in the Strip. Overall, though, for now, the ceasefire is broadly still holding. Ruth Sherlock, NPR News.
President Trump brokered the Israel-Hamas ceasefire, and in Washington, House Speaker Mike Johnson said he and his counterpart in Israel plan to rally global support to nominate Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize next year. Johnson also addressed reporters about the government shutdown now in its 14th day.
2 weeks of Democrats in Congress inflicting untold pain on the American people for nothing other than pure politics, as we've explained at this podium every day of the shutdown. Today, Senate Democrats will have their 8th chance to end this mess by passing our clean, nonpartisan continuing resolution.
Congressional Democrats are demanding the GOP restore soon-to-expire health care protections. They involve tax credits that have made health insurance more affordable for millions of people since the pandemic. Democrats also want to reverse Medicaid cuts. This morning, congressional Democrats and laid-off federal workers gathered outside the White House's budget office to condemn the dismissals of federal employees during the shutdown. Kansas state lawmakers visiting Washington tomorrow could face pressure to pass new congressional maps. Zane Irwin of the Kansas News Service reports the Trump administration has been urging Republican lawmakers across the U.S. to redraw their districts ahead of the 2026 elections.
Mid-decade redistricting is not the official reason for the visit, but Kansas lawmakers expect it will come up. A new Kansas map would likely hurt the state's only Democrat in Congress, Representative Sharice Davids. Republican Kansas Senator Doug Shane's district could get split up in the process, but Shane said he's going into the White House meeting with an open mind.
Gerrymandering, we've all been trained is an ugly word, but the country largely has been gerrymandered for a long, long time.
Kansas Republicans are trying to organize a special session in November to draw new maps. For NPR News, I'm Zane Irwin in Kansas City, Missouri.
From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Suffolk County Sheriff Stephen Tompkins, who's facing federal charges for allegedly extorting a cannabis company that he invested in, wants his charges dropped. Globe reports that Tompkins claims federal prosecutors failed to show that he engaged in a quid pro quo agreement or performed any official acts in exchange for payment. Tompkins filed a 28-page motion to dismiss the case last week in federal court in Boston. And a juvenile Atlantic puffin found in Rhode Island last week has been released off the coast of Maine. Now, puffins spend most of their lives at sea. Very rare to find one on land. Shada Soleimani of the Congress of the Birds Rescue Center took him in.
For the first few days, he wasn't really showing interest in live fish or any fish at all. And so we were giving him tube feedings 4 times a day. Now we're seeing that he has a little bit more energy and he's starting to eat on his own, which is an incredible sign for us.
This weekend, a boat took the puffin from Provincetown to several miles off the coast of Acadia National Park, where he was released into the open ocean. Young puffins have good navigation skills and spend the first couple of years of their lives at sea before returning to where they were born. In sports, playoff baseball, Dodgers are at the Brewers tonight. In the forecast, another wet one, light rain, mid-50s today, then cloudy sky overnight tonight, low 48. More clouds than sun on tap tomorrow, high about 60 degrees, then back to the sunshine on Thursday, which is in the mid-50s. 56 in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy and helping clients find balance. Clients are matched with one of 30,000 therapists for online therapy from anywhere at betterhelp.com/public.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are not at the Boston Public Library today or tomorrow. We are in Brighton, but we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News as usual. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. We're joined now on Zoom by Corby Kummer. Corby's the Executive Director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, Senior Editor at The Atlantic, and a Senior Lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. Hello, Corby Kummer.
Hello, Jim. Hello, Marjorie.
Well, Corby, let's start with Urban Grape shutting down, one of the great wine stores for people like me who know nothing about wine but could get a lot of help, and they had that progressive method. So what happened?
Don't know, but they were defaulting on loans according to the Small Business Administration Economic Development, which gave them loans and also gave them an award for Best Small Business year. And they were so focused on building community, on taking the snobbery out of wine, but especially the idea of partnering with local charcuterie businesses to have lots of tastings and bring people together and teach people about wine in a non-snobbish way. A black-owned business that went into such a white-dominated industry, wine, and tried to remove the snobbery and add community to it. They expanded to Washington, and apparently they couldn't keep up on their rent in Washington. They didn't reply to comment to a Good Globe story that was very supportive of the business, so I don't know exactly why it closed, but it's tough to run an urban business, and especially if you start losing local loans.
Let me just say a couple things about that. First of all, we had TJ and Hadley, the co-owners, the couple on a ton of times.
Wonderful couple.
Wonderful people. The store was wonderful. Their outreach to the community was great. The program they funded, I think at BU, for young, I don't know if they called them interns, as someone who knows nothing about finance of businesses, they did, in my opinion, almost everything right you could possibly do. Not to mention the fact that people who worked for them were incredibly helpful, as you said, and respectful. They did come up with this brilliant thing. TJ did this, the progressive scale, which if people don't recall, he would always explain it. It's sort of like milk, skim milk as opposed to cream.
Yeah, you'd start at one end of the store with the white wine that was more skimmy, and then you end up with the white wine that was more creamy. I thought it was a brilliant concept, being a cream person myself.
I'm sort of, and let me just say, we wish them the best of luck. We're going to reach out to them, and we hope, as they said in that piece, that they'll be back in some other iteration sometime soon. We really hope. They're wonderful people, and were and are a wonderful part of this community.
So, Corby, Zohran Mamdani, who's running for mayor and may be the next mayor of New York City, he talked a lot about these publicly owned grocery stores, which to me sounded crazy, but now I realize that they have been going on in places like Atlanta, I think a place out in Wisconsin. They've gone in other countries. So tell us about these publicly owned grocery stores that some Boston City councilors are interested in exploring as well.
So it's very interesting, and especially that the Boston City Councilor who is proposing this idea says nothing to do with Mamdani. We've come up with it in Boston.
I question that, by the way, but go ahead.
Of course. It's very noticeable. But they aren't actually publicly owned groceries as Mamdani is proposing in other places. What they are is local nonprofits or businesses stepping in to say, we don't have any local food, and when we try to romance national chains, they enter our zip code in their database and say, no, we can't make a profit in your zip code, goodbye. So they've had to mount their own grocery stores and get, for I think it's called Invest Atlanta, get locally owned economic development businesses and corporations to say, we're going to step in and lend a hand. A couple of things stood out in this Good Globe article. First of all, I hadn't realized that, and a related Guardian piece. Mamdani is saying, I'm going to go into city-owned properties so we don't have to worry about rents. And rents apparently are what got in the way of Daily Table, the fantastic locally owned chain with subsidized.
What's that guy's name from Trader Joe's? We've had him on. What's his name?
Doug Rauch, R-A-U-C-H.
He was great. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, a fantastic visionary. Yeah. But apparently signed leases during the pandemic at wonderfully discounted prices that stopped being discounted after the pandemic and got them into trouble with expansion. So the idea that Mamdani could save on rent, the models in the PX system, which never occurred to me, the U.S. military.
It's exactly the reaction I had.
Yeah.
That they are all, and this piece says every branch of the military has its own public grocery system.
And it's, they cut out a lot of middlemen and wholesale. They have radically discounted wholesale prices because they have fewer people along the supply chain they have to pay a cut to, the military. So possibly a city could negotiate these as some of these innovative examples in Atlanta, around Atlanta, and other urban areas in the U.S. have been doing. So that struck me as a really nice idea, and I think that the first thing this Boston City Councilor, whose name I don't dare pronounce, has been proposing should do is bring in Doug Rauch and say, teach us your lessons. How could we do this if we're trying to get the city behind it? Not that Michelle Wu has been doing this, but it struck me as a more plausible idea. When you use city-owned property so you don't have to pay rents, if you try to cut out wholesale, some of the lessons at the other places like Atlanta are ask the community what they want down to the variety of apple. Ask them what they need and what they want first, and so you have a better running start.
Also, there's this guy who's out of work who could maybe run him. Arthur T. Demoulas might have some time on his hand. So, I'm embarrassed to say, we asked Mayor Wu about this after we first heard about Mamdani's thing. The embarrassing part is I have no recollection about what her response was. We'll check it out and let you know a little bit later in the show.
But you know what the story also pointed out is that U.S. food companies' profits have soared as they continue to raise prices faster than both inflation and wage increases. So that's kind of outrageous too. I mean, you hear a lot of people complaining now that Market Basket is under new management over there, Jim's favorite store, that other grocery stores are so expensive. Chains.
What part of it surprises you? A for-profit business that can charge more money and get it?
I guess.
To do that.
Well, Sword is not just charging more money. You know, it's implying that they're really screwing people.
Price gouging? What about the meatpacking industry, which got Trump won under COVID to declare workers essential so that they didn't have to take any responsibility for the COVID epidemics that were killing
exactly.
Killing their workers, and their profits went way up. And they said, oh, China isn't going to buy our pork because they're worried about it. And in fact, they just made all kinds of literal pork profits.
You know, I also want to point out that once again, we seem to be behind the rest of the world on this, because this story talks about other places, like I mentioned, Great Britain. Poland has something called milk bars, these subsidized cafeterias. And then they talk about these similar type places in, Turkey, China, Mexico, Brazil.
Sure, but there has to be the political will behind it and an economic model that doesn't get in the way of other priorities for a city or a municipality.
So it's the democratic socialist that's doing this, Mandami, as opposed to the straight old capitalist that we see in a lot of political situations. Is that what's going on here?
He's going to have to make the budget work, which is what everybody in New York City, from which I'm speaking to you, is terrified about.
By the way, this story that we read about this, I can't find it at the moment, but I think that the percent, here it is, 85%, I'm sorry, 2/3 of New Yorkers, this is in the Guardian, 2/3 of New Yorkers said they support the creation of municipal grocery stores. So we'll see what happens here in Boston.
Also, when you hear him, well, we're getting off topic.
Go ahead.
Just when you hear him, he's really impressive. I don't know how many times you've listened to him, Jim or Corby.
I have.
Listened to him.
But I think the fact that he hasn't, to our knowledge, sexually harassed any women is really going to hurt him in the final. So... No, really. I mean, that obviously with Cuomo and Trump, it's a huge calling card. So we'll have to see what happens. Okay. Speaking of Trump, which we haven't talked to you about in about 10 minutes here, let me read from this great piece in the Washington Post. The Trump administration said that its immigration crackdown is hurting farmers and risking higher food prices for Americans by cutting off agriculture's labor supply. The Labor Department, this is a piece of the Trump administration, warned in an obscure document filed with the Federal Register last week that, quote, the near total cessation of the inflow of food production and prices for U.S. consumers. The shocking part is not the statement, because obviously every sane person knows it's true. The shocking part, maybe it's not so shocking, is one piece of the Trump administration told the truth about what their policies are doing. But there's no surprise in the content, is there?
Well, what I'm thinking is, I couldn't believe that it was in the Federal Register that anything part of the Trump administration would admit these policies are going to really hurt the food supply and hurt consumers. And I was thinking heads are going to roll now that was so publicly stated. But the remedy, which at first sounded good, it allows farm owners to pay lower wages to workers. And so U.S. Labor organizations are very angry about this because they're trying to keep the wages up for domestic farm workers. And it's also shifting the burden of paying for housing to the worker from the farm owner. So it's not good for the worker. Lower wages, higher housing prices. But what it does is ease the economic burden for farmers who are screaming, and rightly, that the loss of labor supply means they're not going to be able to harvest crops, they're not going to be able to sell them, and the tariffs are doing terrible things to the U.S. food supply prices.
You know, Corby, the taco line about Trump on tariffs has often been the case, but wasn't he going to exempt maybe this only lasted a minute, or at least proposed exempting farm workers and other critical agricultural supply people.
It wasn't just farm workers, it was hospitality.
Oh, right, a hospital. That never happened, right? It was just
because he happened to own hospitality places.
Of course, that's right.
These are hardworking businesses, and labor prices are really killing them. We're going to give them a break, and that lasted 10 minutes because he listened to the most recent person, or for whatever reason. But this has gone into effect October 2nd, I think, to make the H-2A visa program, which only started in the mid-'80s to help get more farm workers. But one of the underlying truths of this is that these are dangerous, low-paid jobs that U.S. workers don't want. And farmers are, saying this, and they can't find U.S. workers, despite what USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins says is going to be a 100% American farm labor force. There aren't people to take the jobs. And this Labor Department statement recognizes that U.S. workers don't want these jobs.
We're talking to Corby Kummer. Now, Corby, we generally get closer to Halloween before we start doing Halloween stories. But one of these two Halloween stories is so extraordinarily good that we couldn't control ourselves. The upsetting one that is so-so but not surprising is because of the price of cocoa, there's a lot less chocolate, if any chocolate, in Halloween chocolates, which you're nodding your head. You can comment on that. That is not nearly as good as this following thing. There is a survey of 2,000 adults, this is in Scripps News, found that the average American eats through their Halloween candy stash twice before trick-or-treaters even arrive. One in four confessed they had to restock 3 times or more before Halloween came. Now, if you think by the way, it sounds impossible. No, it is true.
They're too good to be true.
If you read the whole thing, people buy their Halloween candy, which I guess almost all of us do. A majority of Americans at least eat through all of it twice and have to buy it a third time before Halloween. So you may address either of the stories in whatever order you choose there, Corby Kummer.
Okay, so the first one is the lowering of chocolate content in Halloween candies with incredible novelties of ridiculous flavors that have to do with the latest cartoons or superheroes. And the history of the novelty, they're called novelty confections. And the history of this business is they've always been ridiculous, completely unnutritious, taste terrible, all sugar. So now they taste terrible, all sugar, and have almost no chocolate in them because cocoa prices are so high. It's to do with climate and labor and tariffs. So, that's really interesting. It kind of makes me want to reach for some dark chocolate with almost no sugar in it before I can't get my dark chocolate cocoa. But that story is fantastic. The idea that people eat through them. It's like, you buy so many more Christmas presents for yourself than you do for anybody on your list. So this phenomenon actually admits it.
You know what was terrible about this story, but some of our favorite things. It talks about the newest version of Butterfinger bars swaps the milk chocolate coating for salted caramel or marshmallow cream. I mean,
they're
Butterfingers,
smaller too, by the way.
And Reese's, I always forget how you say Reese's.
No, Reese's is correct. Not Reese's.
Okay.
I hate
they
when
have
people
something
say
called,
Reese's.
What are you supposed to say?
Reese's. It's Reese's.
Werewolf tracks. I don't know what the werewolf tracks thing is. But they've replaced half the chocolate coating with vanilla cream, and Kit Kat is enveloped in last year, Hershey had enveloped it in vanilla flavored cream. I mean,
what I would say is these things are so buried in flavorings and salt and sugar that you can bear. It's just a suggestion. It's a hint of chocolate in the first place. So you seem so outraged, but it's just not that different from the regular formulation.
Well, hold on for a second. Reese's are all chocolate with the peanut butter on the inside.
Boy, Marjorie's angry.
That's my favorite candy is Reese's peanut butter cups. I mean, that there's been chocolate there historically.
Yes, that's true. And Kit Kats are supposed to be just chocolate and nice paper cookies. That's true. But I think that the novelty in white chocolate, supposedly white chocolate, which is really barely cocoa butter, it's usually vegetable fat, and some kind of hint of vanilla flavor, because that's what cocoa butter tastes like.
Okay, so this buyer of Halloween candy will not be eating my Halloween candy before Halloween because I don't think I'm going to find any that I like, Jim.
Can we stay on the story for one more second? Because it's really an important story. Not the reduction of the chocolate. Most people I know buy mountains of candy to give out. Now, close your eyes unless you're driving out there. Imagine how much chocolate or candy, other candy you buy to give out on Halloween. And then imagine that a majority of your fellow residents in the United States eat that twice and have to replenish it a third time before Halloween. What's that image do for you, Corby?
It makes me think there's something wrong with the sample size in that whole study, but it's just really fun to think about. It's just ballooning. It's hard to imagine, but it makes me think, go out and buy some really high quality, high cocoa butter. Like I think Mars has a high chocolate fancy line. Make a stash for yourself. Go through it slowly and then buy cheap candy. What I also think is Halloweens of our youth were full of a lot more children because parents were a lot less worried about them. And so you can stack up on a lot of candy, but you generally don't get that many trick-or-treaters because parents are so concerned about letting their kids out.
Yeah, and there's a few, I don't know about Cambridge, but I know in Brookline there's a few Halloween streets where you have to spend like $350
the good ones,
on candy, and you're swamped, and then everybody else is kind of, people trickle in or trickle out. So it depends a lot where you live.
They're gated community Halloween streets.
That's right. That's right, where sometimes they do shut them down so people can walk down the middle of the road. Okay, I'm reading an awful lot about the redo of the Kowloon restaurant on Route 1A North, and I happened to drive there past the building that it's going to be in. It's a big box building that it's going to be in.
As opposed to the classic, A-frame? Is that how you describe the old Kowloon? Is that why you have a look on your face like that?
I think the old Kowloon was kind of beautiful.
It was.
Architecture with teak and glass, and it was a very elegant building.
Did you read, by the way, the original story talked about, I don't know if it was a photograph or an image of what the new Kowloon is going to be, the first floor of essentially an industrial building.
Yeah.
And then Murray White, who's one of their art critics there at the Globe, did this beautiful piece. He's a really good writer, by the way. Really good writer. Murray White does this, Corby probably edited him, does a beautiful piece celebrating the old architecture of the place, and I am totally. It's like this iconic, sort of like the whatever that is at the what was the name of the meat place across the street that shut down? The famous
Hilltop Steakhouse,
and the dinosaur or whatever the hell that is at the miniature. Right. I mean, it's an important part of the landscape of. As such as it is, about Route 1 North.
This looks like a building you'd see in the seaport now.
Well, or worse.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I thought the original Kowloon was genuinely glamorous, mid-century modern. It reminded me of James Bond films.
Yeah.
I loved looking at it. But as for the new boxy, completely anonymous Kowloon, the best you can say, and it's a lot, is it's adding necessary housing, 198 one-bedroom units. I hope they're going to be affordable. It said nothing about whether they're going to be affordable, but I hope they are because that's what Boston needs.
Well, I agree with you. I know nothing about architecture, so why am I speaking? I don't know, but let me just say this. The notion that a high-quality architect could not have kept alive some of the famous architecture at the same time that they created housing is really impossible for me to believe. They could have done better than they did, I guess, is the bottom line.
Did you see the picture of Prince's Pizza
on Route 1?
Yeah. Our producer says, that was gorgeous. They had the big, leaning tower of Pisa kind of sticking up in the air. And
you ever been to the Pisa, either of you? I'm sure Corby has. Have you been there?
Yes.
To be really frank, I've used the bathroom there. So
okay. You know what the weird thing is? I assume most of our listeners have been there. It's a place to go. I mean, it's a big nothing, with all due respect to everybody does the leaning to the side photograph.
Right.
So that they are... Which is I did it too, by the way. I'm not criticizing. It's moronic.
That's right. We're going to talk about this later.
We are?
Yes, sending people pictures of your vacation trips.
We are, actually. So that's
right. You can show me yours of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, Jim.
You can. Oh, and by the way, Prince's on Route 1. Obviously, we have a Route 1 devotee on our staff here. Gone but not forgotten, though. Back to
the Weather
Prince's.
Vane ship.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, Corby, it's been a joy for us. I hope it's been good for you. Has it?
It's been great.
Don't eat all the candy before Halloween. See you soon. Bye.
Corby, thank you very much.
Can you imagine? I hate to obsess on this. I mean, it is unbelievable.
That they get rid of what? The Kowloon?
No, forget the Kowloon. That people eat 2 rounds of their Halloween candy before they buy the 3rd round to give out to people in the neighborhood. It's unbelievable.
I thought you were excited about this story because you feel validated.
Which one?
The eating all the Halloween candy before Halloween.
I do. I don't eat candy that much except the Halloween season. I do eat a lot. Yeah.
So you're down with the Middle America, Jim?
Apparently I am.
Yeah.
First time. It's amazing, isn't it? Shocking. Okay, fine.
All right, we're speaking with Corby Kummer, Executive Director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, a senior editor at The Atlantic, and a senior lecturer at Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. Corby, thanks. Coming up after this quick break, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
This Thursday night, GBH News hosts the 2025 Worcester mayoral debate. We'll hear from incumbent Mayor Joe Petty, City Councilor Christian King, and Aurora Sarkodie as they address issues like affordable housing, police accountability, and their visions for the city's future. I'm Sam Turkin. Join me for the 2025 Worcester mayoral debate Thursday night at 7 on GBH 89.7 or the GBH News YouTube channel.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Global View Communications, providing customized inclusion business strategy, market research, and recruiting solutions for over 25 years. Global View Communications. Inclusion, it's worth it. InclusionIt'sWorthIt.com. And Lexus Broadway in Boston, presenting Hamilton. Written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, Hamilton is the story of America then, told by America now. Hamilton is in Boston through November 2nd. More at LexusBroadwayInBoston.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browder. We're not at the library, but we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Joining us now in the studio is Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung. She'll also host the great podcast Say More with Shirley Leung. New episodes every Thursday. Hey, Shirley, how are you?
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie.
Now, I would like to say the following before we get started. Marjorie Shirley is often complaining that I do nothing for her, that she does many things for me, and I don't return the favor.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say, Shirley, you can be the judge, that if people can see when there's a shot of the studio, we are surrounded by tray after tray after tray
We are.
of food from China Pearl, the great China Pearl in Chinatown. And Marjorie is essentially the beneficiary, and tell me if you disagree with this, of the extraordinarily good work that you and I did. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, we spent a Friday night raising money for the Asian community, the Asian Community Fund in Boston and in Massachusetts. We spent hours. Many prep meetings.
Hours.
Oh, I can relate to that, Shirley.
And we were 700 people, almost 700 people there, right? More than 700 people there. And the governor was there, the mayor was there, everybody was there. It was the who's who of the Asian community. And today, what's happened is that Helen Chin-Schlichty and Paul Lee, they were among the they were honored that evening. Their awards
were named after them,
which is a really big deal. And Jim and I, we donated our time, and so to show their gratitude.
Thank you.
We've got this incredible dim sum spread from China Pearl. We have egg tarts, we have shrimp dumplings, we have hago, we have spring rolls. And have you just stuffed your face?
Marjorie's been eating nonstop since I got here.
Some bread and cheese for lunch. I was just about to eat it when you showed up. So since then, I've had the scallion pancakes.
A couple of
dumplings.
observations, though, that I think we have to make.
Yes.
Is Shirley made a really astute observation, which I think is one of the reasons she's such a great columnist. She referred to a board member of GBH, whose name is Paul Lee, who was one of the 2 people after whom the awards were named, is the best delivery person of Chinese food she's ever seen. He's also arguably the most common in Asian American attorney. But, but he's even better at delivery of food.
I would say he's better. He is a man of many talents.
Yeah, I would say he's better at delivery. In any case, one last thing. He used an expression. Helen, Auntie Helen, who is
like
a
91,
legendary
92
figure.
years old.
He said that her expression for moments like this, he said she calls it dim sum diplomacy.
That's right.
And let me tell you, Helen, if you're listening, it works.
It works. I guess we we have to do this next year, huh?
I hope so.
The next year we have to MC the Asian Community Fund.
In any case, in all seriousness,
thank you
thanks
very
to Paul
much.
Lee and Helen Chin-Schlichte
Everyone here
and all the people.
is thrilled.
We were thrilled.
We're going to be feeding
it's enough food
the
for
It's a
100
surprise
people.
too.
News
It's a
was.
complete surprise. They pulled it off, Helen and Paul.
And instead of me, because I'm a little busy this afternoon, if you can ask Paul to deliver what's left over to my house, can you see if he can?
You're a terrible tipper. I don't think it's going to happen.
Thank you so much. We're talking to Shirley Leung.
So, Shirley, let's move on a little bit. Janelle Nanos did a pretty devastating piece.
I thought so too.
On what's happened to Boston Public Market. Tell people what it was supposed to be. And I guess it's not.
Yeah, so Boston Public Market was started about a decade ago. It's right by the Haymarket station where Haymarket is. And it was really supposed to be Boston's answer to Seattle's Pike Place Market or Philadelphia's Reading Terminal.
Yeah.
And it hasn't quite worked out that way. You know, there's not a lot of produce, or as she points out, there's not even cheese, a cheese market. And they only recently just started selling meat. And it's a little mishmash, There's some restaurants, some coffee. You can buy some things too. It's not exactly kind of the ultimate farmer's market in New England. So and she's writing about now because Cheryl Cronin, the inaugural president, she's stepping down. They're about to, start a search for a new president. So maybe this is a good time to re-examine what's gone.
Why is she stepping down? I missed the original story that said she was stepping down. She hasn't started, but she's been there for
she's been there for a long time.
Right,
so.
the thing has been there for a decade.
Yeah.
And the criticism, when you said, by the way, I've been to Reading Terminal, obviously in my hometown. I've been Pike Place in Seattle. Have you been there?
Yes, I have.
Have you been there?
With the flying fish, the flying salmon.
When you walk in, the first thing you see is the Pike's Market. I think it's called seafood thing.
Right.
And they throw to each other.
It's salmon. Is it salmon? Salmon, yeah. It's a thing. It's a whole thing.
The difference, and it's pointed out in Janelle's story, which I never thought about because I've been about Boston Public Market, not that much recently, is there one-stops, both Reading and Pike's Market. You can get everything there. And the criticism, I guess, of Boston Public Market is you can get some things there that are quite good.
Right.
But you have to, it's one stop on a long line.
Well, you know what I
problem.
thought was odd? It's a bad sign right for the start, I guess. If you're selling fresh caught scallops, but no lemons?
Right.
That was interesting. Yeah.
I thought that was kind of a big oversight.
Well, it was a good example of what I just mentioned, a better example, that you can't get everything in one place.
Right.
So,
and if you've been to the market there, I mean, there's a lot of turnover.
Yep.
It's been difficult for vendors to make money, and I mean. I'm glad that we have one, though. I mean, I feel like it's great to have this concept, and this is a good time. I think Chanel's story point. It's a good time to kind of, is it a time to rethink, or what are the things that need to happen to make this, a really great market?
Well, one of the other things she mentions that because the huge garage next door was closed for a while because of the accident there, parking is a nightmare. I mean, even when that garage is open, parking is really tough.
They do
and
have a
pretty
garage.
Expensive.
They do have a garage.
It's really expensive.
Right,
There's a garage in the building.
Right.
It's where the RMV is, and a lot of people are going to the RMV.
Right, but they have a validated parking, and I use it a lot because it's near the Globe.
It pays how much of the?
No, I'm just saying that if you buy something at Boston Public Market,
cover the whole deal?
It's $3 for 3 hours.
Then I missed out on that. My apologies.
It's a hack for
That's
downtown.
great.
For those of you parking downtown, it's a hack.
You know what they also miss, which I think is a huge. They do not have platter after platter after platter of dim sum.
That's
from,
right.
China
If
Pearl.
only
That
they
is a
had.
real
If
failing.
only
That's
they
true.
had a dim sum.
So the idea
dim sum.
is that they need to have a mission, and maybe they can figure out what their mission is, and then they can move forward in the next phase.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a good opportunity with the change in leadership to have all the vendors come together or city leaders. What do you want to see there? But that area has been tough, especially after the pandemic. That public market, yes, there are a lot of tourists there, but also a lot of office workers. Mm-hmm. And so their traffic is down now that a lot of people are working from home.
We should ask Mayor Wu about it. She's with us, I
Yes.
think, next week, I think.
Because
Mayor
right
Wu's with us,
across
yeah.
from City
Hall, right behind the back of City Hall. Yeah.
And also, I think also the success of Boston Public Market, it also, in order for that to really take off, I mean, you also need Faneuil Hall and Quincy Market to kind of to be at full force too, and that the city's in charge of Quincy Market and leasing, and you should ask her that too.
Are they not at full force? Quincy
no,
Market?
I mean the Quincy Market's also been in turmoil too.
By the way, the mayor's here October 28th, not next week. It shall be October 28th at the library. We hope 12 to 1. So Shirley, it's a really interesting piece about the Mass Municipal Association that for decades was run by a very good friend of mine, Jeff Beckwith, who's a new head a couple of years ago, saying cities and towns are in deep financial turmoil, and that maybe Prop 2.5 has to be looked at again. And Prop 2.5, for those who don't know, limits the increase to 2.5% a year, except for new construction. It was passed by Citizens
Barbara
for Limited
Anderson.
Taxation.
Yes, your dear friend.
Well, she was a friend and opponent, and we debated for about a day. I was not in this state during 2.5. I came afterwards. What's amazing to me is the legislature, as we know, does not have the courage to do what needs to be done, which is raise taxes. But usually what they're willing to do, and I don't understand why it hasn't happened here, they're usually willing to give the power to cities and towns to do that, so then local officials get blamed rather than them. And here, you can't assess a local sales tax or any other kind of tax without Beacon Hill approval. So why are they not just saying, we're going to give you greater latitude to raise as much money as you need to provide the services your people demand?
And
why not?
By the way, it also says that state aid to cities and towns has gone down 25%.
Yeah, well beyond, below the proportion that in other communities. So why aren't they just giving more power to cities and towns?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like it would make a lot of sense. I think about what's happening in Milton and all the towns. I mean, we've had to pass. I mean, we can pass, I guess, individual taxes.
Did you have an override?
We did have an override.
An override is when the people locally can vote to increase the 2.5%.
Which they often do for
limit.
schools.
Yeah.
Right, we do for schools, but and I remember writing about it. I was hoping that we would pass the tax override, but everybody was nervous because a lot of people were against the housing law, and creating more, making it easy.
Housing,
and so we were the first town to say no, we don't want to do this. And I mean, now we're in compliance, but a lot of some other towns didn't pass the tax override, so they have devastating cuts to their school systems. And the thing is, there's got to be a fix here because you can't tell towns every year. You can't send us to the ballot and do tax overrides every year. I mean, you can only really do them once every 5 or 6 years. So and in the in-between years where there's not enough money, we're going to have to lay off teachers and cut services.
Doesn't this underscore what the big problem you keep talking about is the stratification of wealth and poverty?
Yes.
I mean, it's one thing to raise taxes in Brookline. It's another thing to raise taxes in Fall River or New Bedford or Lower Lawrence.
Well, that's one of the reasons why the state
issue.
provided so much more assistance for schools.
Yes.
Because of that inequity. The problem is, and that's a really important point, I'm talking about giving them taxing authority. Some of them don't have the wealth in the community to do it, but the legislature is never going to have the courage to raise taxes statewide and distribute that fairly. If they're not, then the second best thing, although imperfect, is to give local taxing authority. But you're right, in poor communities, the Holyokes and the Chelseas, it's not going to solve the problem.
What do you think is this? I mean, the same thing happened with liquor licenses, right?
Exactly.
They won't allow in municipalities the power to decide how many liquor licenses, and because it's a matter of they don't want to give it power, the legislature. So I don't know if it's the same.
I think we need a ballot question to get rid of the state legislature.
I think that's an excellent one. No, I think
we need to do.
Generally that's the case. They want to retain power, but I think here, when it is clear objectively, the Mass Municipal Association is a pretty respected organization.
Right.
When they are saying, and by the way, the document this is based upon is Evan Horitz, used to be at the Globe, has been on our show a lot. He's now at Tufts. He did the research for this. When Evan and MMA, Mass Municipal, are saying that the need is great and there's no dispute about that, they really have no choice but to either raise money themselves, as I say, which they will not do, or grant more authority. I mean, there'll also be some pressure to loosen Prop 2.5, and the reason it wasn't loosened when Barbara Anderson was alive, who was the spirit of CLT, is she terrorized the legislature, and I mean that in the best sense of the word. She lobbied brilliantly, and they were too scared to do anything. She's gone. So if that's what needs...
I want to know why. I mean, you read about this all the time, that the Commonwealth, the legislature gives less money than it used to state schools, and that's why the tuitions have gone up. And this story talks about their unrestricted, the money they used to give to cities and towns going down by 25%. That's a lot of money. I mean, it seems to me there needs to be, we talk about this endlessly, the ineptitude and the inability of the Massachusetts legislature to deal with almost...
Well, the solution, as soon as they're audited, they'll be able to figure out
as soon as
where
they're audited, that's right. But it's very frustrating because they have a lot of power. And
they won't use it.
And I mean, every year, don't they get... how many years in a row are they the worst legislature in the country or the least effective legislature in the country? It is odd.
Well, what makes it even odder, in light of the fact, with all due respect to Amy Carnevale and the Republican, there aren't any Republicans.
Right.
So it isn't, at least as of the moment, and there should be more, and they'd be more scared for their jobs, Democrats. But in light of the fact there's no fear of losing your position for 99% of them, you'd think they'd be willing to spend their political capital to do the right thing for their constituents.
But with all respect to Amy Carnevale, the GOP in Massachusetts needs to run people who aren't wacky. And that's been one of their problems, is that some of the Republicans they've put forward, I would say, are a little bit out there.
Well, there were a few governors who weren't terribly wacky.
Governors do very well. That's the old line, isn't it? That we elect Republicans to keep the legislature in tow. But they need to get people... I mean, Amy Carnevale's not wacky.
No.
That's a big improvement.
At least as far as we know. I mean, with all due respect, Amy, we don't know you that well.
Have you had her on?
Yeah, we've had her and Kirk and the Democrats share together.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, she is great.
The only thing you could see that she feels really constrained when we ask her questions about Trump is like you have a feeling there's more she wants to say, but she doesn't want to totally abandon ship.
We've elected normal Republicans in Massachusetts. We have not elected wacky ones.
Statewide.
Exactly.
Statewide, okay.
But I think we might elect them locally if there were some to choose
It's really hard to beat an incumbent in this state, but I agree
That is
with you.
very true.
So, Shirley, you wrote what I think is a brilliant analysis of the state of the biotech industry. And before you talk about your primary point, what's going to happen down the line, explain the genesis of our investment in biotech with Deval Patrick and then subsequent governors before you get to your analysis of where we go from here.
Right. So I remember back in, I don't know, maybe, what's 2008? What is that? 15? I can't do
17.
it. 17 years ago. This is when Deval Patrick, first got into office. And back then, Boston and San Diego, we were neck and neck for being the leaders in life sciences in the country, right? And the Patrick administration had this brilliant idea. What if we create $1 billion biotech bill, over 10 years. And that would send a signal to the world that we're really serious about biotech here. We want to be the undisputed capital, world capital for biotech. And the money would go to build, labs and infrastructure. And it would just send a signal to drug companies and life sciences, come here and invest here. And that's exactly what happened, And so now, today, and then Charlie Baker came in and Maura Healey, they continued that level of investment. And so, and I actually added it up for the first time. It's like over between Patrick and through Healey, it's $2.6 billion just from the state alone. And then you add in federal dollars on top of that, all the research grants from NIH. So we have become this real hotbed for biotech. And so I was thinking, are we still neck and neck from San Diego? No, we have blown San Diego. We're blown them away. They're like number 3. San Francisco's number 2. But we are, if you look at lab space and venture capital and federal grants, we are so far ahead of most everyone else in the world on life sciences, and everybody. And this is what I've been hearing since then. Everybody wants to be Boston. It's like, how do we catch up to Boston? How do we become the next Boston? And so that's what led me to this story, because I was thinking, with all these massive research cuts and all these international visas, at stake, international, the kind of the best grad students around the world will not want to come and study in Boston and build their labs here. Same thing with workers. They don't want to work at the drug companies here. And so what will happen? And so I wanted to call around the world, like who, and also around the country, who wants to displace us, And I came to the conclusion, well, it's really hard to displace us, but I can see a half a dozen or more cities kind of chipping away at our lead, And so taking together, they could really challenge us or take pieces of the pie away from us.
But if one of the reasons why our dominance is about to decline to a degree is because of Trump and the federal research grants. Why wouldn't that affect a wannabe Boston as much as it affects Boston?
Well, it does. It's unlike it will affect the other American cities, like, whether it's Houston or San Francisco. But for example, what you'll hear in the last few years is that from the economic development leaders in the states, like, we want to be a leader in biomanufacturing. If there's less money coming here, when you look at Boston or Massachusetts biomanufacturing, it's not going to make as much sense. You're going to go to Houston. You're going to go to North Carolina because the economics, it's a lower cost of living, lower cost, lower tax structure. So they're going to go there. So suddenly we probably won't be viable for biomanufacturing. AI, San Francisco is a leader in AI. They might beat us on AI, and that's a big part of life sciences now. But really, if you talk to leaders in the field, it's the other Cambridge, I say, in the UK. They could pose a real threat to us. They also have a lot of Nobel Prize winners coming out of the University of Cambridge in that area. China, of course, they're throwing a lot of resources into to creating, innovation and licensing. So if you think about if Houston takes a piece, the other Cambridge takes a piece, China takes a piece, it's less for us.
And part of the reason, I assume that $400 million we discussed with the governor, you've written about, the Globe has written about in general, this additional amount of money she wants for research is to fill part of that hole. How many jobs does Biotech provide roughly in Massachusetts?
Right now, I think it's like 130,000.
So it's huge.
It's huge. And think about it, in that 10 years, in 10 years, it's almost doubled.
Marjorie left. It's very sad. Marjorie's left the studio.
It's almost
Where'd you go?
double.
Just for curiosity, I'm sorry. Where'd you go?
Well,
she just dropped a piece of paper.
I have a lot of papers among the Chinese food, and I seem to have lost some of them under the scallion pancakes. Okay.
I'm sorry, Shirley.
But just think about it, from 2014 to 2024, the amount that we have grown so much, it's doubled. Just practically double the employment. I remember that there's a stat from the city of Boston. I think since 2000, $45 billion of NIH money has come into the Boston-Cambridge market. That's incredible. Think about the number of labs been built, the number of people who can work here. I mean, this is our economic lifeblood here, and now it's going to be chipped away. I mean, it's not going to go away completely, right? We'll still be a top-notch biotech center, but I didn't say this out loud in my piece, but
say it out loud right now.
I wonder, was the last few years, was that as good as it gets for us?
Okay, before you go, I was so upset about this story because it focused a lot on my hometown, Florida. We always talk about manufacturing jobs, how important we are. Your colleague, Mohar Mohammed, did a story that talked about this place that makes these fancy leather jackets.
Yeah.
There are manufacturers in Fall River that's in trouble because of the tariffs.
Yeah.
The Matuk, they're high-end linen manufacturers, but they have a factory outlet in Fall River. These stores that are getting hammered.
Yeah, I mean, it's really sad for Fall River because we forget they're a big manufacturing city, and they've gone through a year of uncertainty with tariffs, and there's more coming down the line. And so I really feel for them. I mean, a lot of us thought that, maybe we would have some clarity, right? It would just be a first quarter issue. But no, it's just ongoing. We just kind of live in this limbo.
We never talk about this, though. It's like that was a big thing about, the economy, bringing manufacturing jobs back. People in the story say, of course, it's going to take years to build factories or someplace else if they're overseas, and they can make stuff and get a lot of stuff here, but they do need some products from overseas.
Right.
Well, and also a lot of them sell to other countries.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
Where barriers are being set up because of the barriers Trump is setting.
Right, because our economies are, it's a global economy, but it's integrated.
Can I say one thing that I can't believe you haven't said here is, by the way, and the perfect example of how they have no certainty, which is what they care about. One day, Trump is the 100% tariff that's going to be added to China.
Yeah.
The stock market goes down 800 points. The next day he says, well, maybe we can cut a deal. And the stock market goes up 600 points. The thing that I can't believe you haven't said, the Supreme Court should decide this case. The Supreme Court is deciding
Jim,
whether or not Trump has the authority not in all tariffs, but most of the tariffs to begin with.
Okay.
Or if he needs Congress.
Well, you know why they haven't decided it? Because they only decide cases that Trump says this is an emergency.
Well, that's probably
he
good.
says an emergency, suddenly it's an emergency, even though there's no emergency. Well, he doesn't think this is an emergency, so we could wait who knows how long.
Okay, so we're going to discuss this more, and we're also going to discuss the next thing more, but I wanted to mention it because I've heard really good things about it in the past. November 18th and 19th, I think the 5th annual Globe Summit. I'm guessing you're part of that because I saw your name on it.
Yes.
Tell people what it is, and we'll talk more about it next week.
It's our annual summit at our big summit of the year, and it's the biggest one of the year. You've been part of it one year, I think.
Yes, we were. I think we were.
You were. Jim, you did
They never
spotlight.
invited us back, though. That was... I don't know if that was a sign.
Anyways,
but
it's the theme is revolutionary ideas. I'm interviewing Ben Cohen from Ben and Jerry's.
Oh, great.
We have the editor of The Onion will be there as well.
Oh, fantastic.
As we have, we have some big hospital CEOs. The Dana-Farber CEO will be there.
Kevin Tabb from Beth Israel.
Ken
Casey from the Dropkicks is going to be.
Yeah,
he's terrific. Right. Doing the protest songs.
Right. Actually, that's the panel about.
And it's all online with the workshops and who's going to be there.
So this year, it's a House of Blues. It's in person. You can buy tickets at globe.com/summit, globe.com/summit. You can also join online virtually for free. But we just unveiled the slate, the lineup last week. So hopefully people will reserve their tickets and show up.
And maybe you can talk to somebody for the 6th next year. Maybe they could slide us in for like a quick kind of thing.
We'll do a dim sum, panel.
Don't try taking even
China
one
Pearl
piece of
and
this
Paul
food
Lee
with
for
you.
a wonderful,
Good to see you, Shirley.
This is great. Buffet lunch
Thanks,
here
Helen
in Studio
great.
3.
I think
Even
the first.
though my papers are drowned
Maybe.
underneath here somewhere. We don't know where they are, but that's okay. Thank you, Boston Globe. This is columnist Shirley Leung, who hosts the podcast Say More with Shirley Leung. A new podcast dropped every Thursday, and you have a great podcast. I always say that is true. Coming up after this quick break, it's time for our 2 more things, such as they are. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
When crowds become dense, it can be challenging to move around or leave because of the laws of physics. One scientist set out to better understand human crowds by studying the movements of herds of sheep.
Flow, jam, rock, flow, jam, this kind of behavior.
I'm Andrew Limbong. That's on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And GM Roth Design Remodeling. Dreams delivered. With custom kitchens, bathrooms, and additions. Serving New England for over 39 years. Learn more at gmroth.com. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan. Providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Time for 2 more things. Take it away, Marjorie.
Well, I want to do a shout out to George Stephanopoulos from ABC News.
Yes.
You know, you always complain that reporters, don't ask follow-ups and they let people get away with murder. Well, here he is when he asked Vice President Vance about border czar Tom Homan and his $50,000 alleged bribe.
Here's, George, why fewer and fewer people watch your program and why you're losing credibility. Because you're talking for now 5 minutes with the Vice President of the United States about this story regarding Tom Homan, a story that I've read about, but I don't even know the video that you're talking about. You're focused on a bogus story. You're insinuating criminal wrongdoing against a guy who has done nothing wrong instead of focusing on the fact that our country is struggling because our government's shut down. Let's talk about the real issues, George. I think the American people would benefit much more from that than from you going down some weird left-wing rabbit hole where the facts clearly show that Tom Homan didn't engage in any criminal wrongdoing.
It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted $50,000, as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning.
He was great. He was great earlier in the interview, too, when he was talking, when he asked him about if Pritzker in Illinois, the governor, had committed a crime because Trump wants to send him to jail, and Vance didn't answer that either, and Vance lied repeatedly.
Okay, let's talk about other people speaking out. There's Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think people know that, calling her fellow Republicans weak for not agreeing to extensions of health care subsidies, as the Democrats want. Also, she's supporting the full release of the Epstein documents. And then there's Obama. Remember, we had Mark Leibovich from the Atlantic a couple of weeks ago who wrote a piece about where is Barack Obama? Well, on Mark Maron's final podcast, we have an answer. Here is Barack Obama.
Right now, there's just a little discomfort. And so when I say, for example, if you're a law firm, you saying to, we're going to represent who we want, and we're going to stand up for what we think is our core mission of upholding the law. And maybe we'll lose some business for that, but that's what we believe. That's what's needed. If you're a university president, say, well, you know what? This will hurt if we lose some grant money from the federal government, but that's what endowments are for. Let's see if we can ride this out, because what we're not going to do is compromise our basic academic independence. We all have this capacity, I think, to take a stand. If convictions don't cost anything, then they're really just kind of fashion.
We all have this capacity, I think, to take a stand. If convictions don't cost anything, then they're really just kind of fashion. Sally Kornbluth, president of MIT,
did. Kudos
lived
to her.
this, said no to the Trump administration. She's not going to compromise academic freedom. So good for Stephanopoulos, for Green, for Obama, for Kornbluth. Let's follow their leads.
Okay, we are out of time, but the politics continues after the 1 o'clock news with CNN Chief National Correspondent John King. He's going to join us. He's going to talk about Israel and Gaza, the federal shutdown, and more. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Your part to support the programs you love by becoming a GBH Sustainer. Sustainers make easy monthly donations that keep the news you trust on the air, month after month, year after year. Enrolling is simple at gbh.org/sustainer.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the Peabody Essex Museum, presenting Salem's only collection of authentic objects from the 1692 Salem witch trials. Now on view. For tickets, you can visit PEM.org. And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank, brilliantly since 1865.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browder, head on hour 3 of BPR, not at the Boston Public Library. We start the 1 o'clock hour with politics. Speaker Mike Johnson is warning the current government shutdown, now 2 weeks in, could become the longest in American history. What's the real-world impact now for people in Boston and around the country? And we'll also talk about Trump's triumphant trip to the Middle East and whether it will translate to greater popularity at home. We'll discuss all that with CNN's Chief National Correspondent, John King.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we'll end with you. Since we're fresh off a long weekend, we'll ask, does anybody really want to see your vacation photos? A piece out in the Globe argues that it makes life worse in places struggling with over-tourism. And beyond that, how many pictures of your meal that you enjoyed at the Champs-Elysees are you going to subject us to if that's your circle of friends, Jim? Weigh in next to the third hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The suspect in April's arson attack on Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's home is being ordered to serve 25 to 50 years in prison. Cody Balmer pleaded guilty today to 24 counts, including attempted murder. Shapiro says he has carried an enormous sense of guilt that doing the job he loves has put his kids' lives at risk.
How were they able to get so far into the governor's residence, the place that was supposed to be the safest place we could possibly be? As you saw from the videos that the district attorney played, he was able to penetrate the residence right up to a door that led to the hallway where we were in our private living quarters.
The Democratic governor says today is an example of real accountability for acts of political violence. Democrats joined Republicans in issuing similar calls against political violence in the aftermath of far-right influencer Charlie Kirk's assassination in Utah last month. Thousands of federal workers have received layoff notices since the government shutdown began 2 weeks ago. This week, a federal judge in California will hear arguments challenging the administration's mass layoffs. Here's NPR's Andrea Hsu.
The lawsuit originated with a memo issued by the White House Office of Management and Budget a week before the shutdown. It suggested that the Trump administration might permanently lay off some federal workers instead of temporarily furloughing them if funding for the government lapsed. Unions representing more than 800,000 federal employees sued the Budget Office and its director, Russell Vogt, to block any shutdown-related layoffs. The unions argue that the Trump administration has no authority in a shutdown to get rid of government functions mandated by Congress. They also argue that the White House is violating federal law by requiring federal employees to perform work related to a reduction in force during the lapse in funding. Andrea Hsu, NPR News.
Israeli authorities have identified the bodies of 4 deceased hostages whom Hamas handed over from Gaza. More from NPR's Daniel Lestrin.
An Israeli autopsy has identified the remains of the 4 bodies handed over Monday. The Israeli military says it believes one 26-year-old Israeli hostage was injured in the October 7th attack 2 years ago and died of his wounds, accusing Hamas of not giving him proper medical care. It says it believes another hostage, a citizen of Nepal, was killed in captivity during the first months of the war. The identities of the other hostage bodies returned have not yet been confirmed by Israel. Families of Israeli hostages have expressed surprise and anger that Hamas did not hand over more bodies. Some bodies are missing or under rubble, and there will be an international effort to recover their remains. It's unclear how many bodies Hamas has currently in its possession.
That's Daniel Lestrin. It's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Harvard University has now received payments on the majority of funding that it lost since the Trump administration froze its access to federal grants this past spring. University officials tell the Crimson that money has now been slow to flow back to Harvard's coffers, as it took more than 2 weeks before Harvard received $46 million in Department of Health and Human Services grants. University's Office for Sponsored Programs is in the process of reconciling the recent payments so that they can be used to pay down research costs that were incurred since the grant terminations began in April. And Worcester Public Schools has revived its Safety Advisory for Education Committee program, ushering in a new approach to how the district addresses safety and one that emphasizes both physical security and student well-being. The Worcester Guardian reports that the committee is divided into 2 groups, one for physical safety and one for felt safety. Community members are also weighing in on external safety concerns like the lack of sidewalks to and from roads surrounding the 2-mile radius that children have to walk on going to and from schools. They call those conditions not safe because the students have to walk on roads that are riddled with potholes and no sidewalk. In sports, playoff baseball, Dodgers are at the Brewers tonight. 24 years ago today, October 14, 2001. Mr. Tom Brady threw his first TD in Foxborough as the Patriots beat the Chargers 29-26 in overtime. The rest was history. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. ARM.com. This is NPR.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan. We are not at the Boston Public Library. We won't be there tomorrow again. We're hoping maybe on Friday. But meanwhile, we are still, as usual, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
I should say the last 6 minutes, Shirley Leung was feverishly packing up as much Chinese food as she could from China Pearl.
But a lot of it's still here, Jim.
Thank goodness. We're joined now on Zoom by John King. John is CNN's chief national correspondent, the man behind the great reporting project all over the map. Hello there, John King.
For all the advances in technology, you cannot share your Chinese food with me?
I know.
You don't
so
know
delicious.
how good this is. It is
it's
spectacular.
The best. Dim sum China Pearl, absolutely fantastic. So, John, President Trump has some well-deserved kudos for what we hope is going to be a lasting peace in between Israel and Gaza, but there's many more steps to go. Do we know who's going to be on top of these next steps, or what?
I think, Marjorie, you raise an interesting point. And number one, let's begin where you began, with President Trump and his administration. Whether you like the president, whether you like his policies, you deserve a lot of credit here. There are fair questions about, should he have tried this sooner? Should he have done this? Should he have done that? That's all fair debate. The bloodshed has stopped. The living hostages have been returned. This is a day to celebrate. There are, as you can look backwards and ask questions, and you're allowed to do that. That's a welcome debate. Looking forward, there are a ton of questions. I think one of the key questions you just raised: will the president put as much personal effort into this when there are hiccups, and there will be hiccups? There will be setbacks. It's just the history of the region and the history of the parties that don't trust each other, and the history of some huge governing questions here. Will the president stay personally involved? Will he keep his negotiators? A lot of people raise ethical questions about his son-in-law being involved, Jared Kushner. A lot of people raise talent questions. Is Witkoff, who's a real estate guy, can he do this? Well, they did it. They got the hostages freed, and they have a ceasefire. The question is, Hamas has still not agreed to leave as the governing authority. There are even today some of the families of the hostages who are known to be, or at least believed to be dead, saying, hey, we thought the bodies were going to be returned more quickly. What will this international peacekeeping or stability force be? Will the humanitarian aid, which is now beginning to get in at a bigger scale, will it get in at even a much, 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 much bigger scale, which is absolutely necessary? What about the rebuilding? I could keep going here. So it's going to take a huge commitment. And what happens when somebody fires a shot, when something happens, because it's just the history of the region. So we have a ceasefire. We have amazing developments in the last 48 to 72 hours, and we have a lot of questions going forward. So I think there is cause for celebration. And then there's also just the sober reality that this is Israel and the Palestinians. This is the Middle East. This is Gaza. And it's going to take a lot of commitment going forward. So again, a cause to celebrate, but giant challenges remain ahead. You're starting those challenges from a much better place than we were in a week ago.
I don't know if I can ask this question intelligently, because I wasn't 100% clear what was being said, so I'll try it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we'll move on. NPR's news at 11 o'clock, right before we came on the air, mentioned that Hamas had executed 30-some people in Gaza who are alleged, they contend, were collaborators with Israel since the ceasefire. And then NPR played sound from Trump saying he knew about this and supported what Hamas was doing. Am I? Oh, you don't know? Okay, forget that. John's making a face. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know about what Trump was saying, and Trump supporting what Hamas was doing makes no sense.
Well, he clearly was not supporting their goal, which was to eliminate quote collaborators with Israel. But I thought he was arguing there was some other thing. Forget that question.
I was on the ground in Kuwait City many years ago after the first Persian Gulf War, when this very thing happened. When there were people who were believed to be quote unquote Iraqi collaborators. And they rounded up a whole bunch of people and lined them up in a gym and shot them, and without trials, without anything else. So there are tense moments in this. I don't know the particular details of this, and I don't know why the president of the United States would say he supports that.
I want to be totally clear, because I don't think I asked the question well. Trump was not suggesting that he supported their goal, but he knew about it, and I think he thought there was a different goal that had a peace, whatever it was. Let's move on. The question I wanted to ask you, John, was asked of the former communications director for Trump on your station last night about whether Trump's, at least so far, huge success in the Middle East will translate to more support at home. Will it, or does he come home, again, celebrated in the Middle East, celebrated by a bipartisan chorus, including people like Bill Clinton, for what he achieved there? But does that have any transferability to the headaches that he's facing, whether it's a shutdown or anything else?
The best answer I could give you is maybe, in the sense that I do think you have Democrats and Republicans saying, thank you, Mr. President, this is a good thing. And they also still have a long list, whether it's their prices are still high, or they're mad about the government shutdown, or their families, who are wondering, can I get services because of the government shutdown, or TSA employees who aren't getting paid because of the government shutdown. So there's a whole giant plate of domestic issues, both immediate and next 6 months to a year, sitting there for the president, including a still questionable economy that's stronger than any economy in the world, but still has some potholes and question marks. So does he come home and say, okay, let's figure out a way to end this shutdown? Does he come home and have some other gesture that he wants to make to try to do it? Does he have a little bit more political capital? I would argue that probably. It's hard to be certain when it comes to Trump because people are so polarized about him about most things. But he does have a potential moment here, and let's see what he makes of it.
Well, what people that write about this and know about this are arguing is that Trump put tremendous pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu, and we did go after Iran, bombed whatever amount of their nuclear facility it was. We're not sure, but he did do that. Then he was very upset about the Israelis going after Qatar, the negotiators. So if you can put tremendous pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu, maybe he's going to try the same thing with Vladimir Putin after he meets with Zelensky later in the week.
I think you raised a key point, Marjorie, in the sense that, look, one of the reasons it's frustrating sometimes to try to cover President Trump is that he's so unpredictable that he often changes his position. I had a Twitter troll go after me for something I said 5 months ago about Trump when he was talking about forcibly removing all the Palestinians from Gaza and, building hotels and sending in people. And I said that was reckless and that was terrible, that international law recognizes that as Palestinian land. And so I was asked to give my apology. The president's position back then in May was condemned by almost every single leader you saw standing behind him, applauding him yesterday in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Trump changed his policy. Trump decided to put pressure on Netanyahu. Trump decided that Gaza belongs to the Palestinians, even though it's a very dicey process going forward as to how that's going to work. So the president changed his policy from months ago to what happened in the last week or so in the big signing ceremony, and now we see what goes forward. So does this translate into something new when it comes to Putin and Ukraine? Does it translate, as Jim just asked, into something new when he comes home on all these many domestic issues he has to deal with? The one thing that is constant about Trump is his unpredictability. We will see.
So, John, staying on Ukraine for a second, is Trump intimated on the plane, I think it was the plane to the Middle East yesterday, well, it doesn't really matter, yesterday, that he might give additional weaponry to Zelensky that he's been seeking, including these Tomahawk long-range missiles that I'm not sure if they have the capacity to Russia. What is the concern of observers who are fair-minded about this Ukraine-Russia thing, about arming Ukraine to that extent, or in terms of the potential response from Putin?
It has been the escalation that if Ukraine has access to those kind of weapons and starts firing deeper into Russia, ostensibly at the beginning you're starting with military targets, but do you start then having high Russian civilian? You've seen even before these conversations, Poland and other NATO allies worried about these Russian jet incursions along the thing. And so the whole idea is that you're adding another element of, look at the map, right? We talk about this in the context of Russia and Ukraine, but put a map of Europe in front of you, and to date, as horrible as this war has been, there has not been an escalation into other borders. And so, does it cause something that sets off the Russians in a way that where there's some spiral effect, whether it's deliberate or accidental, that gets you into a broader, more deadly war, and conceivably, it comes over NATO borders. So that has been the argument. The Biden administration, after a long reluctance, did start to give more offensive weapons and longer range missiles. And now again, this is a big change for Trump, who, remember, when he came into office, was like almost we're done with this. Right? Let's just move on. And he was taking Putin's position, to then saying, well, the NATO countries can buy U.S. weapons and give them to Ukraine. Now saying he may escalate the type and the capabilities of U.S. weapons available. So again, it is a shift. It's a rhetorical shift at the moment, and we'll see if the actual substance comes from it.
We're talking to John King from CNN. So Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, John King, has said this has potential, I'm paraphrasing, the longest shutdown ever. But at the same time, the enrollment period in Obamacare begins November 1st, which is the 15th, 14th, 2+ weeks away. I'm assuming that's the date by which people will know if, in fact, their premiums are going up more than 100%, which is what is being projected. And even if they're not going to, I think the deadline to buy in is January 1st, unless I'm wrong. So they may delay it, but at least they'll know what the pain is. It seems to me that reality tied to the fact that not just Marjorie Taylor Greene, but a handful of rank-and-file Republicans in the House say they are talking to the White House about possibly extending these premiums to some degree. And adding one more factor that I saw on CNN this morning, which is amazing, 45% of the enrollees for the premiums are Republicans, 20% are independents. It seems to me all of those factors weigh in on the side of Democrats actually winning this thing.
Healthcare, particularly Obamacare, has become a winning issue for the Democrats after the first couple of years, right after it passed, where it was a losing issue for the Democrats. You make a very valid point that a lot of these recipients are in red states, and in fact, many of them are probably Trump voters, or at least potential Trump voters. One of the reasons the Republicans have not felt as much pressure as you might think when you lay out the math like you just did is that these are mostly safe Republican districts. Therefore, they think if Jim and John and Marjorie are mad and we live in District X, we're mad, we want to know what our premium is going to be, or we're mad our premiums might go up. But we're in a safe Republican district where the guy's got 70% of the vote in the last election and he or she is safe. So it's not as obvious as the math, given that these voters are spread through reliably Republican districts. But I do think that is an issue on which the Democrats have proven power in recent elections. And again, you come back to the Trump moment, Marjorie Taylor Greene has staked out some differences with the mega coalition, but she sometimes gets the president's attention. Does someone like her get through to the president? Or does he come back himself and say, look, we see North Carolina today listening to the president, and a lot of Democrats don't like this. They're going to try to redraw their maps. You have a lot of things the president's trying to do to make the midterm election climate, the map, a little bit more favorable to him. Gaining 6 or 8 or 10 districts through redistricting will not be enough. I know Democrats are saying they shouldn't do it at all, but it won't be enough. If you get the 5 out of Texas and 1 out of Missouri and 1 out of North Carolina, maybe 1 or 2 out of Indiana, it's not going to be enough. California may counter with 5 of its own. But if you have a normal midterm election, the Republicans are going to lose the House. And the president knows that. He remembers 2018. So does he come back and, and now that he could have some time to focus on this, say, we need to figure this out? I can't answer that question. It would be smart politically for the president to try to figure that part out.
Well, that's what I was thinking, too. It would be, I think, smart politically for Trump to say, I've looked at this healthcare thing and we're not going to we're not going to do this to people and blah, blah, blah. But then there's the math issue because...
What do you mean the math issue?
Well, the math issue, because this is funding their massive tax breaks for people that are wealthy.
I'm sorry.
So, what do you do then?
Larger deficits. When do they care about deficits?
I guess that's it. But it does seem to me it would be smart for him to look reasonable and don't want to take away people's health care.
Yes. This is where this gets so complicated. Everything you said is absolutely right. However, then you're heading into a midterm year with what is the single most important factor in a midterm year? Turning out your base.
Right.
And so Trump bailed out Obamacare is a bad headline for the Trump base. And so this
even if they're on Obamacare.
Do you ever go on Twitter or do you ever listen to some of these mega podcasts or anything?
All right.
You're presenting
You're
presenting a logical, factual conversation here. I wish we lived in that world where we could actually debate policy and debate policy in context and nuance. That's not mostly what happens out there.
Yeah, that's right, John. Oh well.
Sorry.
Okay.
We're talking to John King. John, let's totally change gears and go to a race in Virginia with a candidate I never heard of until a week ago. The Democrat running for Attorney General is this guy, Jay Jones. And it's a big race, a big state for Democrats. They have Spanberger, the Democrat, running for the governorship. They really want that badly. Well, it came out in the last handful of days that several years ago, when their Democratic candidate for Attorney General was, I believe, recently had left the legislature, had been in the legislature, he sent a text to a former colleague who happened to be a Republican. It's unclear to me whether he sent it to her by mistake, but nevertheless, he sent it in which he said, he remarked, this is Jay Jones, the Democrat, he would, quote, piss on, those are his words, the graves of certain Republican delegates, that representatives, when they died. He went on to post, and I'm reading from the New York Times, he went on to post a hypothetical scenario in which he had a gun, 2 bullets, and the choice to shoot Adolf Hitler, the former Cambodian dictator Pol Pot, and then Virginia House Speaker Todd Gilbert, who's a Republican. In such a scenario, Jones said he would shoot Gilbert twice. Spoiler, it's a quote, put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time. The reason I'm bringing this up, Spanberger has refused to say he should pull out of the race. How did Democrats criticize Donald Trump for his incendiary rhetoric that has potential to incite violence and stand by their man here in Virginia? I don't get why they don't just cast him aside, and they may even get points for casting him aside, but whether they do or not, it seems to me they have no choice. What's actually going on here in your estimation?
I think you just laid it out quite beautifully. And I think that when you have a candidate for governor who's favored to win, maybe she thinks she's favored to win by so much she doesn't have to rock the Democratic boat and anger some in the Democratic base, which she would. Anger you with leadership comes with responsibility. Exactly. Sometimes tough decisions come with fallout. Especially sometimes tough decisions come with fallout in your own family, right? Think about Republicans who have stood up to Trump. They're few and far between now, but if we go back a few years, there are a lot of people who did stand up to Trump, who had the principle to do it. I think this one is a problem for Virginia Democrats and for national Democrats in the sense that, look, Mr. Jones has apologized, but I can't read minds. Is the apology genuine? Is the apology because he got caught? I don't know. He's apologized. He said he's tried to reach out to everybody involved, and it was what he said and did and texted was reprehensible. Again, I don't read minds. We should be forgiving. People make mistakes, but he wants to be the chief law enforcement officer, and that's what he's texting. That raises huge questions about the judgment for that job. And then to the bigger question about the candidate for governor and the state party, you hit it right on the head, Jim. At a time when they are frequently saying that, Trump is bad for our children, Trump is bad for our culture, Trump is bad when he says these things that are coarse and harsh and frankly horrible sometimes. What is your answer, right? What is your answer? So, the risk of saying he has to go is that a Republican will win the attorney general's race. Is that the end of the world?
Yeah.
What's more important, principle or this? So, it's too late. I believe I don't have the Virginia, Democratic, either state law or Democratic Party rules in front of me. I think it's way too late to replace him. But I'm of the school that principle should come before politics.
Well, you also may get some benefit from being principled, too. It's not just an abstraction. Speaking of Virginia, the Democrats are putting a lot of money, my understanding is, in that race, but a huge amount of money in the New Jersey gubernatorial race. Where do those two races stand? My understanding is both Democrats have a lead, but where do they stand, John King?
Both have a lead, and I think the question is, number one, do you trust the polling? Number two, the fascinating question we have going forward is, I was just in New York City. I went to all 5 boroughs because of the fascinating mayor's race that's there. And when you go into the Bronx and to Queens, you find all these men of color who voted for Trump, and they work in auto shops and they work in small factories, and they're blue collar people who were Democrats. If you look at New Jersey, I'm promoting a competitor here, but my boss sent me this fantastic piece on the NBC News website about the shifting vote in New Jersey over the last 10 years. Right? Some communities getting more Democratic by a lot. They tend to be the more affluent, higher income, higher educated communities, but a lot of the blue collar communities becoming more Trump. So can Jack Ciattarelli kick into that into New Jersey?
He's the Republican nominee for governor.
Yeah, my ramble here is, can other Republicans do what Trump did in the electorate? Trump has changed the electorate, and can other Republicans do it? Winsome Sears is the lieutenant governor, the Republican nominee for governor in Virginia. She's losing right now. Jack Ciattarelli is the Republican nominee in New Jersey. He's losing right now. One of the challenges, so this off-year election, the odd-year election, is going to give us a good glimpse, or at least a first glimpse, at can other candidates be like Trump, say things like Trump, campaign on issues like Trump, and create the same coalitions Trump has created. No one's been really successful at doing that so far. Doesn't mean they won't try, but that's a giant question in this year's election.
Well, I see a lot of people trying to be like Trump, and they're failed utterly. J.D. Vance would be one of them. It just doesn't do it at all for me. Or what's his name, Jim Jordan, that tried
DeSantis tried to do it.
DeSantis tried to do it. To me, Trump is a uniquely talented guy. He's telegenic. He's charismatic. He's an entertainer. He's really good at what he does. But meanwhile, you have the Democrats in this big fight for shutting down the House, and
here she goes again.
Well, I can't help it. They don't seem to recognize that probably their messengers count. And you have Chuck Schumer walking around with a whiteboard there and, talking about with this little pointer. And Hakeem Jeffries, who doesn't have that whatever it is that makes you so want to listen to somebody. You're having on your station, CNN, you're having the Bernie Sanders AOC thing, I think this week, where they're going to be on doing
Wednesday
some town debate. They got massive crowds, even in red states across the country. So Democrats really seem to have trouble picking talented messengers ever since Barack Obama left the fold.
Well, I think when you're in power, like a Chuck Schumer is, I get it. It's hard to give it up. When you're in power, like President Biden was, it's hard to give it up. However, I will say this: that Barack Obama's election in 2008 was an example of this. Donald Trump's election twice is an example of this. And what you're seeing in New York City right now, where you have an immigrant candidate who's in his 30s, who has no executive experience, who's the leading candidate.
Very good. Very talented.
To be the mayor of a city of 8.5 million people. People say, well, government-run grocery stores, free buses. Older voters say, who's going to pay for it? It's a fair question, right? Can he actually get those things done? It's a fair question. But he's proposing new ideas on issues that are relevant to people's lives, and he's getting attention. People don't like what they got.
Yes.
And if you don't like what you got, you are willing to be broader in your acceptance of something that's different. And so when Bernie Sanders, he's not new by any means, he's not new, but he challenges the establishment. AOC has become sort of, Bernie's sidekick on the road here. And I mean that as a compliment. Please don't take that as any criticism. Can she become a national figure? Can she, what Mamdani might be able to sell in New York, things you can't sell in Scranton, Pennsylvania, or Omaha, Nebraska. But if the people of New York vote for it, that's their right. But candidates get attention when they challenge the way things are, whether that's liberal or conservative or left or right, or throw out those labels because they may not matter anymore, because people are fed up with what they got. They don't think it's working. So they're open to different ideas.
John, but I would argue that they're doing the same thing they do with Biden. The Democrats are now sticking with the people that are trying to defend the status quo, which would be Schumer and Jeffries, instead of realizing they made that mistake with Biden and making it again.
I don't know if they're trying to defend the status quo. You don't think they're effective spokespeople for.
Well, I think a lot of it. As we know, they haven't endorsed Mamdani.
They don't have. Let's be fair to them. They don't have an easy job. They're in the minority, and they're dealing with. They're trying to keep their coalition together as well. And some of them think, and I think this is probably right, but it's also probably also lazy. That, as I said before, the metrics for the midterms are in their favor. So if they can just get into next year, they'll probably at least get the House back. But geez, dear God, that's a long ways away, right? That's the election's a year off, and then then you got 3 months to January. So it's trust me, from going through the younger professionals, younger people in New York City that we met, they want it yesterday. They don't want it a year from now.
When's your reporting on your New York City 5-borough tour going to happen? I'm dying to see this. When's this going to happen?
It'll be probably the last week of the month, right before the election. I'm sitting. I was almost late dialing in because I'm sitting here going through it. I have these. We did all 5 boroughs. Had some fantastic food, by the way. Met some amazing people. It's interesting because it's one city, but they are 5. And I don't pretend to be an expert on New York, which is why I went and dove in. And I'm going back next week as well for more. There are 5 very distinct boroughs, and yes, it's an overwhelmingly Democratic place, but it's fascinating, and it's incredibly diverse, breathtaking. Some people think that's a problem. I think it's a blessing. Sure, it has challenges, but the thing we could all agree on. The food was fantastic.
That is fantastic. Hey, before you go away, I have to place a bet tonight, and I was going to call you, so I'll ask you now. I'm trying to figure out, who do you think the Patriots are going to play in the Super Bowl? I can't figure out. Who do you think it's going to be? Quickly, John. Can you give me somebody? I need help.
But you get some gummies on the way in today?
Well,
we got a long way to go. Let's be happy with where we are.
Okay, John.
One day at a time.
Okay, one
yeah,
day at
I'm
a time.
happy to hear about Drake May. That's his name.
He was
right?
fabulous. He's
The
been great the
quarterback.
last few weeks.
Because I used to see those signs for him like a year ago. Up, he was advertising
23 years
billboards
old.
for advertising whatever he was advertising. I'm thinking, gee, you better take the money now because you may not be around long. But now he seems to have had a whole turnaround. So good for him.
It's nice to have a quarterback, and we have some issues, but we're heading in the right direction.
Heading in the right direction.
Good to see you, John King. Thanks for your time. Talk to you next week. Be well.
Thank you very much, John King. Great to talk to you, and can't wait to see
the New York thing. I cannot wait.
We have been speaking with John King, CNN Chief National Correspondent, the man behind the great reporting project All Over the Map. And John says his next installment of All Over the Map would be right before the election in New York. Coming up after this quick break, we'll open the lines to get your thoughts on the phonification of our vacations, Jim. Why does the phone always have to eat first? You know what that means? We're obsessed with sharing every little moment of our lives. We take pictures of all the dishes we get on the table to send them to our friends before we take a bite. Should we be doing this? Does it drive you crazy? Are you one of the chief offenders? How many pictures of your vacation are enough pictures of your vacation to deluge your friends and family with when you're on vacation? I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
When crowds become dense, it can be challenging to move around or leave because of the laws of physics. One scientist set out to better understand human crowds by studying the movements of herds of sheep.
Flow, jam, rock, flow, jam, this kind of behavior.
I'm Andrew Limbong. That's on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Minute Women Home Care, providing senior home care services to families in the Metro West Boston area for over 55 years. Services include dementia care, fall prevention, live-in, and 24-hour care. MWHomecare.com. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing coverage plans for individuals, families, employers, and retirees with benefits that help you live in your moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan live from our Brighton studios. Not the library, not back at the library tomorrow either. We'll see you about Friday in a day or two. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH. We have to talk really fast in this segment because Marjorie and I have a lot of Chinese food to eat. So we got to get there. Since we're fresh off a 3-day weekend, we're ending the show today with a little vacation wanderlust and a debate, of course. Picture this. You've traveled a long journey overseas to some beautiful destination. You're just sitting down to dinner at a lovely European restaurant. The food comes out. You're ready to dig in, and your travel partner holds up their hand, beckoning you to wait so they can take a photo of the meal and the view and the waiter and the drinks and the stray cat, Marjorie. Maybe you've heard the phrase, used it before. I love this term. The photo eats first.
Isn't that great?
And maybe you're one of those people who loves to document every little moment when you're on vacation. Either way, we want to know what you think about vacation photos. Not just food, but places. Is it one thing to take a bunch of photos for yourself and another thing entirely to post them all over the internet and force your friends to look at them? What do you think? Vacation photos and you, 877-301-897. This is one of the things I have really strong feelings about, by the way. If someone says, let's assume you just got back from vacation, and you say it was a great trip, etc. Here's what should guide you. If I say, do you have any photos I could look at? In which case you say, yes, I do, and show them. Unless I ask you to see what you ate, where you stayed, your room, your shot of the ocean, keep it to yourself.
I did just show you a shot of the ocean over the weekend.
She did. And not only that, by the way, after Marjorie pretty much agrees with me and shows me a shot of the ocean from where she was this weekend, she then proceeds to start playing 400 videos of her grandchildren, which, by the way, while I didn't ask for those, they are spectacularly great.
You didn't ask, and so I didn't subject you to them. I think generally speaking...
I heard them from the other side of the room.
I'm sorry. Nobody cares about your kids or your grandkids. I mean, I think that's a rule to remember.
Well, hopefully you do.
Well, yes, but other people don't really care. They're polite about seeing the pictures, but they don't really care. Here's this great, I've never heard of him before, but I know him now, William Haynes. He's this 22-year-old comedian
a great line.
who hosts this source-fed show, People Be Like, which I have to start listening to immediately. Anyway, here's what he says. I like how my generation is all about sharing. What's the point of having a vacation unless you can tell people about it immediately? If you can get a few Instagram photos out of it, then you have made your money back. I mean, that seems to be the thinking. And I think, and the question, too, or what are the motives here? Is this kind of just a tone-deaf attempt at self-branding? An erotic attempt to thank your host? A need for constant scrutiny? Or is it just gloating and making other people feel bad?
Well, I don't know if it fits in one of those categories. Later in the story you're quoting that Haynes guy from, it says something like, well, if you spend $6,000 for a beach rental, you want to get $6,000 of, what's the noun they use later? The $6,000 of the admiration or whatever it is
like
from
that.
Your friends and that sort of. I find it to be one of the more offensive behaviors. And by the way, it's offensive enough when someone's taking pictures. Did I ever tell you, this is not directly on point, but I want to tell you the story I haven't told you in 20 years on the air. My uncle, who was my surrogate for my father, was basically nowhere to be found. So my uncle, my mother's brother, was essentially my de facto parent. He would travel a decent amount. He was a doctor, made a decent amount of money. He would send photos of everywhere he went. And you know what the photo was? He drove everywhere. Him standing in front of his car. So you saw the car, my uncle, and the sign for the town. So let's just say he was in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You'd see Uncle Irv, his Cadillac, he was making a lot of money, and a picture of the sign for Santa Fe. Would you ever see Santa Fe? No. Would you ever see any of the beautiful scenery, the rocks, the mountains?
Okay.
Nothing.
It's so weird
Him
you say
and his
this.
car, it could have been taken in his garage.
Maybe it's a generational thing.
What do you mean?
Because my father, when we went on trips, all he took, forget the car or him, were pictures of the signs.
Oh,
Welcome
maybe it was.
to Waterville Valley. Welcome to Cape Cod. No people, no pictures of work.
Well, you may explain to your father. I don't want to get off track. Did your father grow up poor or not much money?
Well, yes.
Well, so did my
struggled.
uncle. I mean, I struggled. It wasn't like dirt poor kind of thing. Maybe it's because I got here. Now as an adult, I'm able to go to Santa Fe. I'm able to go to, I don't know, whatever it was. Has nothing to do with the topic. The topic is vacation photos, whether it's of a meal or a place. Do you really want to see them? And how do you feel when you're offered? Well, you never offer them. When they're forced on you by a friend or a relative.
And according to this story, what you really have to think about is the frequency of the photos you subject people to.
What do you mean by that?
Well, that you don't want to go overboard. Maybe you could send one picture, but you don't want to do too many more. And you don't want to...
What do you mean, if you post them? The
Yeah.
beauty, if you just post them, no one's forced to look at them. I don't have as much problem with the posting, even though it's a little arrogant and self-absorbed. Well, you know a lot about self-absorption, Jim. I'm sure that's where it's coming. I knew that was coming.
I
so
didn't say a word.
Well, I'd get it out of the way.
I said nothing.
But if you force it on someone, like it's on your phone, and you sidle up to them and tell them to look at it, that's where it crosses the line. Should we take some calls?
Yes, we'll take some calls.
Where should we go?
Let's start with Susan in Milton. Hi, Susan.
Hello, Susan in Milton.
Hi, Jim and Marjorie. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm like, good God, I can't believe they're finally bringing this topic up. Oh. If I have to see one more picture of someone's food or a wine glass, or I'm like, are you serious, people? I can't take it. I can't. I mean, I'm in a group. I am a boomer. I'm still working part-time, but most of my boomer friends are retired. They're on Facebook, like, posting food and what they're eating, or they're mixing some crap together to make something. I'm like, I don't care. Do you understand? I don't care. And I guess I won't take all your time, but you know what? I'm of the school of, and I actually teach yoga on the side too. I sound like, people are going to say you do, because she doesn't sound like it. I'm actually a nurse too, but no, but the yoga part of me says, you know what? Enjoy the moment.
Enjoy the moment.
You don't have to take 500 pictures.
That's
Enjoy
we are
the
missing.
moment.
That's an equally important point. Is most people who do this nonstop photo taking or videoing, Susan, don't even get to enjoy the thing they're taking a picture of.
How about the guy that fell off the mountain taking the selfie?
I know.
Remember that?
Hey, Susan, that was a fabulous call.
Fabulous call.
Call us again. That was really fabulous.
I think there is a generational kind of thing.
Yeah?
I see a lot more of kids in their 20s and 30s.
Trips as much as food. The food, I have to say, I object less rest of the food. I cannot tell why.
You are
because
really
I'm a
into
food
food
obsessed.
in a way that you should really
But a
discuss
good photograph
with your therapist.
of like a porterhouse or something like that. You know what I mean?
Listen
or
to
a good
this.
Caesar salad with homemade croutons.
Listen to this. What about surgery photos? My coworker came in today and started showing me photos of her husband's Mohs skin cancer surgery.
That's great.
I almost passed out. I hadn't even had breakfast yet. Well, that's like some people. I haven't heard of this lately, but I did just hear about people that would film the birth and invite their friends over to watch the birth. Can you imagine that?
No, I cannot.
No, I think that's something that you really... I don't even know why you want to photograph it. You know, get the baby when the baby's born, but the rest of it's a little messy, as I recall. Evelyn from the car, thank you for calling.
Hello, Evelyn.
Hi there, you guys.
Hi.
I'm so glad I got through today. I've called you a few times and missed, but this topic is a real sore point for me. I hate taking pictures when I'm on vacation because I'm enjoying my vacation.
Exactly. There you go.
I'm enjoying the view. I'm enjoying the scenery. I'm eating my food. I'm drinking my wine. I'm walking around. I'm looking at stuff. I don't have time to take pictures so I can bring them back for you to enjoy my vacation. You want to go on vacation? Pay for it. Take your pictures. Look at them at home. Leave me alone.
Wow. Two women on fire. What a start. Evelyn,
love
that was great. That was totally great. And again, Evelyn and the prior caller said something that we hadn't raised, which is forget terrorizing your friends and family members. The mere taking is an indication that you're not, as the first caller said, in the moment. You're not enjoying what you're doing. You're just photoing what you're doing.
I always try to be in the moment, Jim.
Yeah, you really.
So here's a good question.
What is it?
Are people interested in seeing pictures of our cats and dogs? Maybe we're interested than seeing other people's meals. Now, that is a good question, because I got a little great picture from Trenni this morning.
Of her dog?
Of her dog, and I loved it, because it was a dog.
Yeah. So what's your question?
Well, that's the texter's asking.
Pets versus meals and vacation?
Yes, we'd rather see pets than people.
Well, as you know, I've embarrassed
shots.
myself repeatedly and mentioned I spend a lot of time on TikTok watching little animal videos. But you know why? I literally stopped last Thursday or Friday because you don't know anymore if they're real. And that gnaws away at me. Having said that, when a person sends, Trenni's not a kid, when a person sends a animal photo, I do feel differently. Why do we feel differently about that? You feel differently too.
I think because you're not really showing off. You're just saying, look at this picture of my dog, and the dog is doing something cute, and I think that's maybe it.
How about the fact that I plan to send photos of the Chinese food that Paul and Helen brought us to everybody I know? Everybody. And if you text me, I'll send it to you too. Let's go to Debbie in Rhode Island. Hi, Debbie. We're talking about vacation photos being forced on people who don't want them.
Good afternoon. Robin Williams had a really good quote of, you will have to tell people what you see as opposed to photographing. But I was at a bed and breakfast in Maine. Some food blogger, after eating her breakfast, asked for another meal so that she could photograph it for her blog. And the guy says, why didn't you do that before you started eating?
What was her answer?
Which is so poignant. She said, I didn't think about it.
Well, I hope she paid for it.
Did she? But yet she didn't think of it. He made it for her.
That's really obnoxious.
She photographed it. And I was like on the verge of saying, no.
Another person with great passion. Well, do you ever do it? Tell the truth. Hey, Debbie. Vacation. Debbie, do you ever send photographs of your food or your vacation to other people? Tell the truth.
Only if they ask.
Well, that's exactly the right answer. I hope it's true. Debbie, thank you for your call.
Well, this is the problem with Facebook, which I haven't been on in a long time. But if you're still on it, you get somebody's vacation photos and they send them all. Or people that send you their Instagram videos and you got to look at those. I mean, that's the problem. They send that to you and they feel bad. Anyway, if you feel bad if you don't look at them. Here's Maureen in the car from Rhode Island. Let me tell you my photo story. My sister-in-law took graduation photos of her niece for her college graduation in May, and I am not kidding. There were 150 photos of the niece posing in different positions and different combinations of people. 150 photos. Shoot me.
Does anybody, by the way, Hannah, if anybody actually supports this, we do? Oh, the next one. Good, I was going to say. Let's be balanced if we can. Diana in Boston, apparently you're the one. Hello, Diana.
Hi, Jim and Marjorie. First-time caller.
Thank you.
I've just been thinking this whole time, if it's really so upsetting, just don't look at that person's post. Don't go on social media. If you don't want to see 150 photos of the graduation, don't look at 150 photos of the graduation.
Well, by the way, Diane, I'm totally with you. And that's why I said before, the postings don't bother me because I agree, just don't look. How about when you're at work or at a family gathering and it's really hard to say no to your friend or cousin who sits down next to you and starts shooting through the pictures on her phone? What do you do then?
I think if you ask the person how their vacation went and they show you photos from their vacation, then it's on you. You asked how the vacation was and they had a great time. Of course they want to show photos.
So since you don't ask.
But I think that's the problem. People, I don't know about your experience, Diana, but mine is, gee, I just got back from so-and-so. I'd love to show you the pictures. And then you feel like a jerk saying, well, I don't really care about your pictures. I don't want to see them. You know what I mean? Especially if it's a friend or a family member.
How about this is an alternative? What if you say to the friend, Diana told me to tell you I'm not interested, and blame it on her? Diana, we're going to use...
You can do that.
We're going to do it.
You can definitely do that.
Believe me, we're going to do it. Thank you. Now, an anonymous, thank you for your call and your courage. Anonymous texter says, and this is a very good point, we should have thought of this. To her credit, at least Kristi Noem didn't send photos of her dog. That's
right.
She didn't write about her dog.
Cricket.
By the way, I got I got an email.
Dog's a little bit
to
over
my
a year
personal
old.
email the other day saying, you're lying about Kristi Noem and shooting her dog. Do these people not know the reason we know about it is because she wrote about it?
Yeah. She wrote about it in her book. She dragged the dog to some pit and shot the cricket in the pit. And then she went and dragged a goat and shot the goat in the pit.
Yeah.
I mean, she said, I hate that dog. It was bizarre. Well, I mean, look at her. Look at where she goes to places where people are suffering. And she's standing there like
wearing
in
her
this
Rolex
swell,
and
her Rolex watch and her really tight clothes, like this is some kind of photo op.
So an anonymous texter says, who could disagree with this? The worst is pictures of feet on the beach. Ugh, the person says. Yeah, that is bad. You've never gotten anybody send you pictures of feet on the beach?
No.
And we've had a lot of foot discussions on this show.
Their own feet?
Well, maybe somebody else's or their own.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Feet on the beach.
Feet on the beach.
Something to look forward to, Jim.
Yeah. Feet Gone Wild is one of my favorite movies. You ever seen that?
No.
It's a documentary. It's really, you laugh, you cry. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, so here's Steve in Somerville.
Yes.
You're next. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, how are you?
Don't go. Before you do it, one of our colleagues just put up for Feet on the Beach the photograph of Bill Belichick in the sand, barefooted with Jordan doing that ballet pose on his feet. I forgot about that. It's a beautiful photograph. Steve, take it away.
Hey, no problem. I really don't mind a lot of photographs of people on vacation. I'm kind of used to it because my wife and father-in-law take hundreds of photographs, just like the ones you're talking about.
Yeah.
The problem is that people don't know how to edit. Now that everyone has a camera that can hold 10,000 photographs in their pocket or in their wallet, they just do everything and they don't know how to edit. I make photographs for a living, and that's like an art. It's an art form to know how to edit.
Wait, what do you do for a living? What do you do?
I'm a photographer.
Oh, well, you have sort of skin in the game, right?
Yeah, and just to give you an example, we went overseas a couple years ago and brought kits to make s'mores for my relatives because they didn't know how to make them. They had never heard of them before.
Yeah.
And I took 2,000 photographs of each side of the family making them, and I distilled all those 2,000 photographs each to 30 photos on a CD. So you have to be able to edit. You can't edit. That's the point.
I have to say, I would like to see 2,000 photographs of people making s'mores, Steve. But I hear, no, Steve, you make a very fine point. Thanks for the call. Ken in Salem is a genius. Can I read this one?
Yes.
It's the text. Here's what Ken deals with it. And we need more people telling it, like Diana told us how to deal with it. Ken in Salem says, I always say, quote, I don't have my glasses with me. And he goes on to say, I don't even wear glasses. Well, you don't say that, but that's perfect.
Yeah.
That is perfect. I don't have my glasses with me.
Have you been to weddings lately where they take away people's phones so they won't be...
No, I was at a wedding 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, was everybody have their phone out? Is the bride's coming down the aisle and taking all the pictures?
Yeah.
Everybody does that now.
I actually took a few pictures,
Yeah,
too.
well, I think lots of people don't do that.
You know what I did instead, though? Most people were taking pictures of the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
After the wedding, they made s'mores, and I took 2,000 photographs of them making.
Okay, so we have some people who disagree with us here. Janet in Hopkinton says, some people like my food posts. Some people even like my vacation photos. So there. And then Jim in Gloucester says, I love seeing vacation photos on Facebook. I live vicariously through my friends. I've been around the world 3 times through my friends' photos.
Hey, look at Jamie's note to us. Jamie is our colleague. Do you have it on your screen?
I was at a wedding a few weeks ago. They took our phones away because I was taking too many work-related phone calls. Okay, Jamie. I think we asked it. My son just got married. I think we asked it. Nobody...
Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
But your kid had an official photographer. And then they make those available to people.
Right. They make them, it's so to have everybody with their cell phone out taking pictures.
Sort of ruins the whole feel of the thing.
Yeah. It's like when you go to a concert now and everybody's got their phones up.
You know what I've done at the weddings I've been at lately? I think you'd like this idea. You should have told your kid.
Yeah.
I got one of those GoPro things and I had it on my head. And you have a little camera on your forehead, and so you don't even.
That's right. Or there's Google Glasses you could walk around. Or is it Facebook? Who makes glasses you can walk around taking pictures of everybody? They have no idea.
That's Meta. We call that Meta.
Yeah, that's not good either.
Now, Stephen and Melrose, this is because of the slanderous conversation that Marjorie Allegations has been making for 26 years. I've been on the radio. Jim, you ever send pictures of your Morton's toe on a beach to anyone? Okay. Let me say this for the second time in a week. 1, I don't have Morton's toe. 2, even if you do, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just one toe
is bigger than
longer
your big
than
toe.
your big toe, but that's not the case with mine. In fact, Stephen, I will post on our TikTok page my foot to prove that I do not have a Morton's toe.
Why don't you take a picture of your foot?
Why don't you take a picture of your foot?
Birkenstocks.
I'm serious.
I'm not taking any pictures of my feet. Let me tell you right now.
Not this life, not the next life. Will you see me in Birkenstocks, okay? Is that clear?
Okay. What are those sandals you wear from Provincetown, the leather merchant
They were
days?
handmade by the Rouleau family, who are the most famous sandal. Roger Rouleau, Kim's father, was the first person in the world, Marjorie, in Provincetown on Allerton Street to create the handmade sandal with no buckle. There's no buckle at all, and it's beautiful.
Love that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Here, Billy from Holliston.
What do you say?
I once saw someone filming a funeral service from outside the confines of the cemetery as he couldn't step foot on the grounds due to a religious affiliation. At what point in his life does that guy say, gosh, I really want to rewatch that funeral? You know what used to make me feel guilty, too?
Live in the moment, he says.
If you go to your kids' productions, and whether it's a play or it's an athletic event, and the parents are filming the whole time. So how many events can you rewatch?
Well, there's a much more interesting question, which is the question whoever you just quoted said, how many times, forget the funeral, how many times when you take a video of what your kid is doing, do you go back and watch the video?
The whole thing.
Of what how many times have you ever done that?
You don't, because it takes an hour for every play, and your kid probably has a 2-second appearance, and you're filming the whole play. I mean, it's very difficult.
Let's squeeze one more in.
Okay, let's
Jody
go to Jody in Boston. Hi, Jody.
Hi, Jody.
Hi there.
Hi.
So I have wanted to call in so many times about far more pressing issues, but this one really put me over the edge.
Excellent.
Oh, good.
I cannot stand when I go to museums and people get in front of me.
I'm so with
they
you.
take a picture of the painting and they walk away. They've not spent any time looking at the painting.
Exactly.
They've taken a picture and they've walked away.
Boy, we left that off the
You
list. That is
called
a brilliant
at the
one.
perfect time because Jared Bowen has just walked into the studio.
Are you done, Jody? That was brilliant. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
You're fabulous.
I'm done.
No, we know you're done with that, but
So
you're done with us too. Jody, thank you.
You
Did you hear
finally
that?
get to the front, take a picture of the Mona Lisa, which of course is always
Jody
much
is
smaller, and
so
everybody thinks it's
right.
going to be this little tiny painting of Mona Lisa. And then they block everybody's view and they leave the...
I know. I just want to stage an intervention to say, did you realize you didn't even look at the painting
That's what
yourself?
Jody's point was.
Yeah, they just take the picture. Sometimes they don't even spin around because they're doing the selfie, so they never even turn around to look at the picture.
You know what should happen? Can I make a creative suggestion? I'm fairly proud of this, so don't mock
What?
it. if someone goes in a museum like Jody just described and takes a picture without looking at the photo, ICE should come grab that person. There are enough people working for ICE now. Let them grab those people.
So I think I have the solution.
What is
Everybody has to think of themselves as a filmmaker or a journalist. You have one story to tell. You have one 5-second story to tell. Like, here's a picture of my kid in their play, but this is where the kid fell off the stage. This is what makes it interesting. Or this is the volcano exploding. This is what makes it interesting. If those things aren't happening, put your phone away.
Wow. Well, also, to take a picture of the Mona Lisa when there are all these art books that have taken pictures of the Mona Lisa, which are 90,000.
Buy a postcard, too, if you want a picture.
Buy a postcard. It's what's so weird that they think their picture's better than the professional ones.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you send pictures of your vacations? I suspect not.
No. I barely go on Instagram anymore. I just kind of stopped.
Me too.
Although I will say I think it's important to take, because one of the things that got me...
Instagram?
What?
When were you on Instagram?
I am.
You're not on Instagram.
Yes,
you
I
are?
am. How do you think I got the picture of Trenni with the dog?
On Instagram? I'm sorry, Jared. You were saying. Go ahead. You go ahead.
I've never seen Marjorie on Instagram.
Nor have I. She's making
I don't post.
Take a picture.
I never post.
Okay, fine. What were you saying?
What was I saying?
I don't know.
forget.
So it was Marjorie's fault.
Because COVID, I was so thankful for all the pictures I had taken in museums over the years, because then I get to create my little virtual visits. Yeah.
We are big hypocrites. Did you see what we just got from Shirley Leung?
No.
All the pictures of us with the food here in the studio.
Well, Shirley, I mean, I love Shirley to death. Shirley is a big picture taker. She's a big selfie doer. She's a big picture taker. So we're exempting her from our condemnation.
I think you took the pictures,
photographer.
Jim.
I did not.
Okay.
Okay, what are you doing on the show there, Jared?
So we have Bobby Brown on the show today, the makeup, the cosmetics empire person.
Oh my God. That's so exciting.
I know. She's great. She's a fellow Emerson alum. So she has a new book. It's called Still Bobby. And it's fantastic. And she takes you through her life, which was not what you would think it is. Despite her success, she has had a lot of ups and downs. So we'll talk about that. Joyce Haywick is here to go over films.
Love her. Love
theater,
her.
and Diane Keaton. I still can't say that out loud practically.
I hate to compliment him because I have utter contempt for him, even though he used to be my favorite filmmaker.
I know where you're going.
He wrote a beautiful piece about her. I mean, I almost can't. Woody Allen wrote a really great piece. Did you read the piece?
I did.
It's a good piece.
Yeah.
But he's such a contemptuous.
Yes.
Okay,
He's
forget.
also a great writer.
I shouldn't have brought it up. He was.
Cuckoo Mass Incident.
He was. Okay,
and
what else?
Pulitzer Prize winning poet Tracy K. Smith is here. By the way,
What
she
a
was
show.
the first ever guest on the Culture Show. She's back because she has a new book coming out about how poetry can bring us all back together.
Love that. All right, see you around.
Bobby
Take
Brown
a
has
picture
this
of
great
her.
new makeup for women of a certain age.
Jones Road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe you can
We'll
snatch
talk
a
about
few
it.
little samples.
Take a picture of all your guests.
Can I
and
take
send
some
it
of
to
your
us, will you?
Chinese
Help
food?
yourself.
No, don't touch it.
No, we got tons of it.
Okay,
Tons of it.
I was
Help
joking.
yourself,
Okay,
Jared.
can you do the show thing or what? We're done.
Hey, you distracted me for the whole thing with the food, Jim.
Okay, well, I didn't bring it, did I?
It was all over my papers.
That's shumai. Is that fabulous?
Okay.
I've never seen anybody put a whole piece of shumai in their mouth, ever. Until Jared. It's like the size of a loaf of bread.
He's busy.
You just swallowed the whole damn thing.
I have to explain what we're doing tomorrow.
Oh, see, John said skip the thank yous.
Thank yous. Skip the thank yous. Okay,
Yeah,
tomorrow
well, thank everybody.
we're not at the Boston Public Library
No.
tomorrow. Jared Bowen is going to be with us. Harvard National Security expert Juliette Kayyem, Boston Globe Love Letters columnist Meredith Goldstein. He's got a great new podcast about the movers, interviewing movers when they go to move the house of a divorcing couple. A reporters panel with GBH's Jennifer Moore, WCAI's Gilda Geist, and NEPM's Karen Brown. The Connecting the Commonwealth series, Unraveling Immunity, about vaccines exemptions. Thanks for tuning in today. Hope you can tune in tomorrow and have a great day.
Bye.
I don't care. You understand? I don't care.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Massachusetts Maritime Academy, where education meets transformation. Their Learn, Do, Lead philosophy is designed to deliver students prepared for global leadership in careers on land or at sea. Maritime.edu. And Minus 33 Merino Wool in Ashland, New Hampshire. Since 1916, makers of all-natural merino wool underwear, outerwear, and New Hampshire-made socks. Their merino wool clothing and accessories are available at minus33.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org.